field. Oh, and Branch. That's a great job. What a great job by Zachariah Branch. Freshman to the house. 96 yards.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
So 1st and 10, Jadarian Price back in there. And he's got the handoff. Price finds the hole, and he's gone. Touchdown, Irish.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Falk kicks it, and McGowan, one of the fastest men in the SEC, receives it at the 3. And here comes the sophomore, Jaden McGowan. Watch out! 97 yards.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
So a big 4-minute drill coming for Louisiana Tech. Fake it to Moody. Blockmeyer delivers over the middle. Caught. Smoak Harris inside the 25-yard line. Goodbye. Touchdown. Smoak Harris takes it the distance.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Play action now on 1st down, taking another shot over the middle of the field. It's caught! Touchdown, Notre Dame! Jaden Greathouse, the freshman, perfectly there for Hartman.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Zachariah Branch! And there's the freshman's first USC touchdown.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
And here we go. And tonight there are games on the table. Big 12 team and UCF opening up tonight. Utah, future Big 12 team, with a really a really interesting game against Florida in a game where they lost that last year. And then, of course, former Baylor head coach Matt Rule in Minnesota against P.J. Fleck and the Gophers. And so we'll focus in on some of those games and a couple of more stories as well. Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina. I'm David Smoak, and thank you for being here yet again today. All right, we've discussed this. We're going to go over some of the games. Tonight, would Utah and Florida be, among all the games, the one that really gets most of the national attention?
Yeah, Utah and Florida is going to be the big one because that's two, schools that, I don't know. I mean, Florida's not recently won anything, but Utah is the defending Pac-12 champ. They're going to be more than likely without their star quarterback. I like how they're kind of floating it out there like he could Willis Reed his way into this thing, but I just don't think that's going to happen. Florida won the game last year, and then it kind of spurred Utah on to kind of get over themselves and win the Pac-12, which they did for the second year in a row. Both of them are going to have new quarterbacks out there. I don't really think we kind of know what's going to go on in that game. It's really kind of puzzling. And in Nebraska, Minnesota, is all new across the board for Nebraska completely. And Minnesota is replacing their quarterback, their running back, their center, a whole bunch of people. So, yeah, there's a lot of new going on tonight.
How dare y'all? This is all about new Big 12 member UCF, baby. It's all about the Knights. What are y'all talking about?
Yeah, I know.
I mean, it's all about Gus Malzahn and company. No, I mean, it's an interesting night for just Big 12 observers, but I mean college football fans in general, but I'd say Big 12 in particular because you've got UCF playing, you've got Utah playing, you got Arizona State's playing. I mean, all of them are going to be conference members here within a year, and then even, one of those teams that was floated out there for one reason or another in UConn's also playing. So, there was a stage where maybe this was a fourth one, although I don't think we got super close to that at any point. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be a fun night, but certainly the biggest game is Florida, Utah. I mean, Utah's the only top 25 team playing tonight. Florida's an SEC team that's, won national championships in recent memory and are trying to get back to the promised land. And as you said, they won this game last year. It's on the road, though, this time. And, there's the rising wrinkle. But, yeah, I say it's Utah and Florida's the most interesting game on paper. But, I am interested to see UCF. I am interested to see Kenny Dillingham and Arizona State and how they start things off with Jaden Rashada. But Nebraska-Minnesota is another, game that, it's 1B or it's number 2 as far as the actual matchup itself goes. And, excited to see Matt Rule. I mean, we enjoyed our time with him here when he was at Baylor, and there were a lot of lows. There were also a lot of highs, and, we're certainly hoping that he does well. You're also a Nebraska fan, so you're really hoping he does well. But, yeah, it'll be interesting to see his return to the college game and what that looks like. Last time he was coaching college ball, it was a very forgettable Sugar Bowl loss to Georgia because he was basically 1 foot out the door, that entire week because of all the NFL rumors. Not to say that he was doing that coaching-wise, but just the whole mood was
right.
It wasn't about the Sugar Bowl. It was about, is Matt Rule going to the Jets every single day that week? And then little did we know, or maybe some did, that Georgia was going to win that game and then go on the run that they've now gone on the last couple of years. So that was the last time he coached in college, and tonight will be the return. So, yeah, a lot of good stuff, and that's just a sliver of what's going on tonight.
Well, I'm excited. Somebody asked me that this morning when I was playing around at golf, and yeah, I'm excited to just see what they look like. And really, the expectations have changed. Paul's a Florida State guy. Craig's an OU guy. I'm a Nebraska guy. I love college football. We all do. That's why we love doing this show. And even if we weren't doing this show, we would love college football. But I just want to see a football team that makes sense. They've just been pathetic. It's been a long time, but really, there's so many just disastrous type decisions and opportunities to win games. Remember, 2 years ago, they had all of those close losses, but that's what bad teams do. So we'll have that. The Big 12 officially kicks off tonight with UCF and Kent State. UCF Realist on the chat room. Go Knights.
Go Knights.
Good luck. And it's great to have them. And by the way, Utah with the future next editions with the Big 12 starting next year.
And Arizona State.
And Arizona State playing tonight against, was it Southern Utah?
Yes.
Yeah, Southern Utah. So UCF tonight is on Fox Sports 1. Florida is on ESPN, the big one. And Nebraska, Minnesota on Fox, and Southern Utah, Arizona State, they play tonight at 9 o'clock. I don't even see a network attached to that game.
No, I don't either, but that's that time zone for you. 9 o'clock kickoff time, right? So there you go. There's part of the appeal is technically you're going to start off with UCF at 6 o'clock and then have a game kicking off at 9 o'clock, and it's, on a Thursday. I know not everybody loves that, but that's part of that, like, hey, where can we find windows? Where can we put our teams? How can we, span the TV sets out there and the time zones out there? And so I think you're going to get a little taste of that tonight with a game in Orlando and then a game in Tempe as well as the nightcap.
So there we are with those games that some of you already coming right at us, and nice to have you with us on the chat room. And also, if you want the text line available at 254-339-1122. Here is the Big 12. Remember that pro day that they're going to host, that everybody's going to be at the pro day at one time in Frisco at the Star? Pro day will be sponsored by the Air Force, Reserve. So they've already got the sponsor set. That came out today from the Big 12. They also had a hype video, but we're trying to get clearance on whether we can run it. It's pretty cool, involving everybody who is a part of the Big 12. Houston, look at these jerseys. Houston Oilers love you blue. The 713, they popped that out there today. Pretty darn cool as they reminisce on the team, Earl Campbell, Dan Pastorini and company. Craig, going back to the pro day?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. I'm not sold on it being the greatest idea in the world, just because it's something that's going to need to be seen by me to really like love it or like it or potentially think it sucks. I mean, it sounds good on paper. I know that any like kind of event you put some sauce on and you make it sound good and you can get people excited for it, but I'm curious just to see what that looks like, bringing all of the prospects together under one roof. Instead of having your individual pro days and doing it the more traditional way. That's going to be very interesting. So, just another one of those kind of trial ideas and various things they've done to be creative. But, I'm just very curious of kind of how that all works when the time comes.
All right, so there's a few comments from Northeast Ohio Boise State fan earlier today saying, I went back and watched the Boise State-Oklahoma Bowl game. Remember that crazy hook and ladder? And then eventually the Statue of Liberty to win the game? Saying if it's no more of a game, proof of growing the number of teams who have a chance to win and play in the postseason, not bowl game postseason, but in the playoffs, and they should go to 16. I was thinking maybe 8 would have been my number. 12 to me is okay. I think we're starting to get a little bit watered down anytime after that. I don't care how many they go to. I'm just glad that there's going to be some sort of a playoff that is not just the 4.
I'm thrilled for 12. I think it's going to be great. I think that's a good number. I think that 16 is the biggest number that would make sense, because I think once you start getting past that, then you're starting to get into, I mean, you might have a team at 17 who has 4 losses. Some years. I mean, most of the time it's 3, but and then you're pushing it. Like if you tell me that you're going to get most of all the 2-loss teams in that have played really good schedules, I'll buy that. But 12, I like. 12 allows a team like last year's Utah that would have been in the playoffs. 12 allows for more of those things to happen. So I'm all for that. I think it'll be better than 4, and it'll certainly be better than 2. It'll certainly be better than 2. Picked very arbitrarily in several different fashions over the years. So, yeah, this makes a whole lot more sense and will be more fun. And, like if you're a team that thinks that you can win the national title, and look, there are only a few every year who realistically can, but, over the long haul of a season, an opportunity to play in a playoff, like if you lose a game early on and just have to chalk it up to like, well, that's it. Our whole goal is gone and we have to do that. I don't like that for anybody. If you lose a kind of a middling game and then you can't come back from that, like to me, I just think that makes it a lot harder. And then, then it gets, like I said, arbitrary when it comes down to splitting hairs of like, well, this team didn't lose and that's why they deserve to be there. But who did they not lose to, as opposed to who did you lose to? So those are things that you start splitting hairs, it gets really tough.
Yeah, we need to go back to the Houston jersey. We gotta settle in on that just a little bit at some point. But if we're going back to the playoffs
Garrett,
first,
did you already erase it? Because he's pretty good about that.
Because I had to go back and let's go back to the play. I guess we'll finish this thought and then go to the playoffs and finish that thought. But yeah, I mean those are awesome jerseys. Very nice nod to Love You Blue and the Earl Campbell days and Bum Phillips and all that. I think that's a really cool look, and I'm excited to see how those look in game action. But, yeah, it's a nice alternate and a nice nod by Houston there. And as far as the playoff, and I don't really love that Boise State game, I'll be honest with you. That was not a fun game to watch for me. That was pretty devastating at the time, actually, because it was just such a gut punch and such an unforeseen gut punch at that. But, those are types of games. I mean, Tulane last year in the Cotton Bowl and, just teams like that otherwise don't get those opportunities. Yeah, I don't like a world where those types of opportunities get blocked. Now, am I foolish enough to think that Boise State's going to be able to win a 12-team playoff, or Tulane for that matter, or most teams for that matter? No, because, you could beat, USC in the first round Cotton Bowl, but then can you go beat LSU in the second round? And then, okay, you can. Well, can you go beat Clemson in the semis? And, you can't. Or are you going to go beat Alabama? It's just that's not going to happen. But, that doesn't mean, like in some people's minds, well, you can't win the whole thing, so you shouldn't get a chance at all, which is the mindset of some people. Like, well, let's keep it at 2 or let's keep it at 4. Let's not have opportunities. No, I like the more wide open 12. I don't know. I'm like Paul. I don't know that I'd love going anymore. That's starting to dip into with all due respect, Mike Leach territory, where it's just like everybody gets invited. And I don't really want to see that, because I do think the regular season has to matter. I mean, it has to matter to some extent. So I think it's about the right number when you have the qualifiers that you do, and you include non-Power 5 teams in the mix to some extent. I like it. I'm excited to see it. And you know what? If it's too much or if it's not enough, then they'll correct it. But I hope they don't just add teams because it brings money. But that's also kind of why we've seen a lot of the moves that we have, and that's the part that I'm worried about. But I like the 12.
No, they're gonna add teams if it brings money. That's no question. Everything is about that. Of course, that's why we see the realignment crazy. There's a note about the ACC, and they're meeting to discuss the additions of Cal, Stanford, and SMU. Nicole Auerbach, Stuart Mandel, a part of this as well. that the ACC presidents have rescheduled their call for Friday morning to discuss expansion and possibly vote. So there it is. You know what I want them to do? Do something. Either say yes or say no. And if they say yes, good luck to everybody. That's great. But say something. Do something. Move on and get back into the season.
Yeah, no, it's time to make those decisions and figure it out. The haggling over here is really only about money distribution. And let's face it, FSU and Clemson are really only against it in the fact because if you're going to leave anyway and get more money, you might as well vote for it. The only way they would say no is that they're just so unhappy with how little of the money would be coming their way. Like that number, that amount would be coming their way because, why not say yes if you're just going to leave in a few years anyway? Like, why not just go, yeah, whatever, we're going to get more money, we'll go, unless you're just so mad about the actual dollar figure that's going to wind up in your pocket that you're going to try to wield a little bit more power. To me, I'm just saying, look, if you're mad about the overall money that your rivals have, if you're Clemson, it's South Carolina, if you're Florida State, it's Florida, that have more than you, and you can get a little bit more of that this way and there's not another way to get it, then at least for the time being, you might as well do it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm of the opinion that, or I'm like you in that get it done. I'm not being like forceful about it. I understand where you're coming from, though. If this was done, over the course of the months and months long off season, then okay, cool. And we just did that. We did that with the Pac-12 and the Big 12. But yeah, now we are actually starting games, and it's something you wish would be wrapped up, and you'd kind of have, the ability to move on from it entirely if you're the teams involved, the fans involved, the conference is involved. It'd just be nice to know, but, can't rush it, I guess, but they, we're supposed to do this on Monday, and it's going to be Friday by the time that they do it. We understand the situation in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and then the weather, with the hurricane and how those are contributing to the delays. That's understandable, but yeah, I mean, just kind of the way this has gone, if they delay it again, it just makes you wonder, like, what the hell's going on? Because they're putting it out there, they're voting. It's not like there's a secret of, like, is this team interested or are they not? We know they are. Are these teams willing to move or are they not? We know they are. So there's no secrets as far as, like, are the Four Corners going to come to the ACC? Are they interested? Are they not? Like, we know all of the stuff that doesn't need to be speculated on. It's simply are they going to get voted in or are they not? That's all that there is to this story. So that's why, yeah, you kind of wish they could just come to that conclusion since there's not a lot of the other stuff to deal with. And, yeah, I don't know. I felt like yesterday – they seemed like pretty much a slam dunk to be in based on the various reports that were out there. Mike Silver, who's a respected NFL guy but very tapped in, a Cal guy, he's been basically saying it's a slam dunk for the entire week. So, I don't know. He could be wrong. People always are at some point or another. Even really good journalists can be wrong from time to time. But he's saying with it a confidence that if he's wrong, that's going to be shocking for those involved, it feels like. So, yeah, 3 teams that are waiting word and going to be interesting regardless of which way it goes, but even more interesting if they don't go through with the yes vote. That's going to be the more interesting outcome, but that might not be the most likely outcome.
Couple of things to get to. We have to break. Mitch Sherman is in Minnesota for the game between Minnesota and Nebraska. He'll join us today. Also, Mike Craven of Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine did a feature on Baylor defensive coordinator Matthew Powledge. He'll join us today in this opening hour. Max Olson, Taylor McCarg, off the radar with Craig and Paul's top 5 between now and the end of the show. Also, this note, and this is a guy that, on the UCF poll that Levi put up, it's 70-30. That's with the spread. That's not who's going to win the game. That is against the spread or with the spread. 35.5 point right now is a part of that prediction.
I don't, and I'm not a bettor. I don't have the money to do it, and I really don't. I want to enjoy a game and not be like, oh my gosh, I've just lost whatever I lost on a game. But those huge spreads to me are just. It's like they're almost impossible to get because 35.5 means you got to win by more than 5 touchdowns, and you could be up by 7 touchdowns and pull your starters, and then all of a sudden
give up 14 points.
You win by 4 touchdowns just because it doesn't matter. And offenses are different now.
Welcome to the slippery slope of trying to get involved in making those types of decisions and putting some money on it. Yeah, I mean I don't know what you're talking about. We're all millionaires over here. We're thriving. We've got that kind of throwaway money. No, I don't know how to deal with that either. I'm not going to pretend to be the expert gambler. I know that it's as popular as ever, at least publicly, because now it's allowed to be a lot more, talked about publicly all the way up to SportsCenter. But yeah, I don't even know how you begin to deal with that. I'm sure there's some folks in the chat that know exactly how to, but it's definitely not my cup of tea, and I won't pretend it is. But that's a massive spread, and hey, if they can, cover that, then good on the Knights, and we'll be talking about it either way tomorrow.
We will get more in depth with this story at 5:25 today with Mickey Spagnola from DallasCowboys.com. But a legend who was a major part in the Cowboys dynasties back in the 60s, 70s, until the end of the Landry years, because the other part of it was obviously Jimmy Johnson, Jerry Jones, and others. But Gil Brandt, legendary Hall of Fame Cowboys executive, died today at the age of 91. Joe Trahan from Channel 8 in Dallas had that out earlier today. All of us know him incredibly well. He was a great friend of the show, a great friend to kind of lean on and ask questions about. He found diamonds in the rough in places where most NFL teams did not know existed back before they really became truly deep scouting departments. He was a legend, and so rest in peace, Gil Brandt.
He's a very, very wonderful man, very nice guy. Would sit and talk to anybody who wanted to talk to him. Fun to hang around. Always knew where to get giveaways, free stuff. I've learned so much from him just in that regard. He was just a fun guy to talk to and brilliant. Like, if you like the NFL draft, you like it because Gil Brandt did that. Gil Brandt changed it. I'm a huge fan of the NFL draft, and if the NFL draft was still what it was before Gil Brandt came along, which was guys sitting in a room looking at magazines of who the best college players were, and then kind of doing trial and error over, okay, we need a guard. I've got the 6th pick. Who's the best guard? It's this guy. All right, we'll do that, as opposed to what Gil Brandt did, which was go to Latrobe, Pennsylvania to try to find a punter. Or, this guy was a basketball player, but look at him.
Cornell Green was a basketball player. Turned out to be a tremendous
If
player.
we put 35 pounds of muscle on this guy, he'll be an excellent offensive lineman. All those kind of things. Rayfield Wright, Drew Pearson, undrafted guys that are in the Hall of Fame. Just so many brilliant things he did.
Yeah, I had the opportunity along the way, like we all did, to get to know him a little bit and to be around him. And he was a wonderful human being, and obviously an absolute legend who is someone that has their fingerprints all over what we see today in football at the NFL level, and just the way things work, especially scouting and those types of areas. And it was kind of sad to see. I don't know when the last time I saw him was. It was probably a couple years ago, and you could tell he was slowing down pretty tremendously. And he hung on. And man, I mean, you talk about a guy who knew everybody and just was at every Super Bowl and doing the rounds on Radio Rows until he just couldn't do it anymore. And just no matter what table he stopped down at, like it could be Oklahoma City, or it could be Dallas, or it could be like New York City, and whatever name you threw out or anecdote you threw out, he had a story or an anecdote or, a background or some tale to tell on that person, or at least remembered them and could like recite their numbers, even if it was 35 years ago, in some random scouting trip in the middle of nowhere. I mean, he was an encyclopedia of football knowledge, and the game changed for the better in some ways because of him directly. So yeah, they being the football world lost a legend today.
He's the one that made others get a lot better when it came to scouting and their personnel departments, because he was way ahead of the curve, maybe a decade ahead of the curve. And we can share some more stories with Mickey at 5:30, including when we were at the NFL draft, I think in Chicago, and Andrew Billings wasn't getting drafted. It was sliding, and Gil Brandt, writing back to his hotel, told us why. We'll do all that at 5:30, but R.I.P., rest in peace, Gil Brandt. When we come back, Mitch Sherman is at the Minnesota-Nebraska game. His thoughts about that game, the Matt Rule opener, and P.J. Fleck and the Gophers, and this is 365 Sports. Stonewood Dental, Robinson, Texas. Dr. Steve Childress is my dentist. I'm proud to say that because he's helped me so much with my dental work, and more than just what you do on an everyday basis of brushing your teeth, flossing, and making sure that you take care of it. For the longest time, I did not brush my teeth, but I feel something, and I didn't get it looked at because I didn't want to go to the dentist for too long. And finally, after too long, then it gets worse. It's not just a cavity. It's then all of a sudden a tooth that's gone. It's an implant. It's a lot. And then, of course, the money piles up, too, because crowns are expensive, so are implants and all of the work that goes into it. Dr. Steve Childress in Robinson, Texas, has also served our country and also been able to help with those who have served our country when he's been overseas with our great troops. He is fantastic. He has helped me when it's been an emergency. He's helped me with just the daily or whenever I have an appointment every 3 months or 6 months. Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, my dentist in Robinson, Texas.
During the Labor Day sales event, save big on a new Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited with $3,500 plus 2.9% for 72 months. Or a new Jeep Gladiator Sport with employee pricing for all plus 1.9% for 72 months and an extra $1,000 rebate. Or get a new Jeep Compass 10% off MSRP and no payments for 90 days on all offers at Allen Samuels in Waco.
Come by. Let's be friends.
Looking to connect with Baylor alums in your area? Baylor alumni can help. Looking to host a watch party in your city? Baylor alumni can get you started. Want to step out in your community and serve with other alums? Baylor alumni is your connection with the university and each other. Let's get started. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Pioneer Steel & Pipe opened their doors in 1943, and they have never wavered with their focus on great product and customer service, relationships with a handshake, making sure you, the customer, is satisfied. Their new facility is now twice the size, allowing new inventory, higher quantities, and in a much more organized fashion. In addition to the long lengths in tubing, angles, channels, rods, and flat, Pioneer Steel & Pipe now offers several shorter, more convenient lengths of material already cut. Their 2,500 square foot showroom has over 1,000 new products in stock, new welding supplies, hardware, quickcrete, and do-it-yourself components for any project, whether you are a professional contractor or weekend warrior. The new facility is designed to make your loading experience faster and more efficient with easy drive lanes around the building and much more room to get your trailer loaded. Our location may have changed, but our values haven't, and our relationship with customers goes much farther than just business. Pioneer Steel & Pipe on Loop 340 and Highway 6 and just east of I-35 in Waco.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Nebraska, the Matt Rule era starts tonight on the road against P.J. Fleck and the Gophers. Mitch Sherman covers Nebraska for The Athletic. He joins us on 365 Sports. Mitch, obviously a win would be great for Matt Rule to open up on the road a couple of weeks in a row, but what really are the expectations of this football team?
Good to talk to you, Smokey. Well, the expectations for Nebraska in week one, I think, are pretty simple. It's just to look like a viable, competitive, improving football program. More than the team that we see on the field tonight, it's about the program and the direction that Matt Rule is taking Nebraska. It's been 9 months of it's like the full Matt Rule experience, and I know you're familiar with that, but the off-season experience has been something to behold here because he has won over the fan base in the state of Nebraska in every possible way that you can without playing a football game. So here it is, time to play a football game, and let's see how far the progress has come on the field. We know they've made a lot of progress off the field, but tonight it's about just not being that team that's beat itself so often over the last few years.
Mitch, we were talking about this on the show yesterday, and they kind of made reactionary hires over the years and never really kind of assessed where they were as a program. Is Matt Rule the first hire since Tom Osborne left, or since Frank Solich, where they have taken a step back and said, this is who Nebraska is today, and if we want to build to who we were, we need to think about things differently?
Well, yeah, I think that's an accurate statement, but it's also kind of a reactionary hire. If you're exactly right. That one hire to the next, it's always been almost the opposite of the guy who they just got rid of, whether it was Frank Solich to Bill Callahan to Bo Pelini to Mike Riley to Scott Frost and now to Matt Rule. There are 180-degree differences in many aspects of their personalities and coaching styles between Scott Frost and Matt Rule. Nebraska may have just lucked into the second part of what you suggested, that they hired the person who is the coach that they need in this moment. We'll see. I think everything that he's done to this point, all that he's shown, it makes up for maybe 30 or 40% of the needed formula to make him the right person for Nebraska at this moment. Most of the stuff that he needs to do is going to come on Saturdays, or in this case, on a Thursday night. He certainly has won these first 9 months, but that's not anywhere close to being, the full realization of the formula. I do think it looks optimistic, though. It looks positive that they found a coach and who stresses the style of play that can work for Nebraska if he gets this going the way that he wants in the Big Ten. They have the right idea in place with Matt Rule.
Mitch, in terms of what we see tonight, what are some of those things? It doesn't have to be a win, like you said, and there are going to be some bumps in the road, but what are just some of those things that you're anticipating or hoping to see tonight that you think will add some more gas under the fire that's starting to burn right now in Lincoln?
Yeah, I think it would be really disappointing if the defense doesn't play well. That's been the story on the football field. That's been the story of the offseason. When Nebraska's been on the practice field, it's been one day after another of hearing about the progress that Nebraska's made on the defensive side. Matt Rule hired Tony White, the defensive coordinator from Syracuse, as he put his staff together in December. And Tony White has been, by all accounts, coming out of practices, he has been a great fit for the players who they've assembled to make up this defense. And in large part, the majority of the leaders in this locker room are on the defensive side. So much of the experience is on the defensive side. So while players like Jeff Sims, the quarterback transfer from Georgia Tech, and the running back Gabe Irvin out of Georgia, who is finally healthy in his third year in the program and will start at tailback tonight. Well, they've gotten a lot of the headlines because they played the glamour position. Nebraska's going to win or lose with its defense for at least the first portion of the season. So if Minnesota is able to come out and get first down after first down and move the chains and get 7 yards or 6 yards on first down have a high percentage on third down, then that's a real disappointing result based on the way that this offseason has looked. So I'm looking for Nebraska to play well on defense. Now the offense is a different story. It may look like a mess at times. I'm not sure where the big play potential outside of Sims breaking loose on a long run is necessarily going to come from with this offense, but they should be solid on the defensive side.
I was going to bring up the game breakers because I don't think they have any, at least not that it appears, with Trey Palmer now in the NFL. So what about things that they were just awful at recently? Special teams, things that a bad team has to be good at to have a chance to be competitive. A good team then becomes really good. Is that something he has worked on? And truly, do you see that could improve?
Well, they've been awful in the fourth quarter. They've been awful at playing fourth quarter football or playing the best football that they can when it counts the most. And Matt Rule has absolutely emphasized that. He's talked about being a fourth quarter team, being the best team in the fourth quarter, wanting to run for 75 yards or 100 yards in the fourth quarter of a game. Obviously, you need to be in a position to run the ball ahead, presumably, or within one score to keep it on the ground in the fourth quarter. That's been that's Nebraska has felt snake bitten over the past 5 years, but really the snake has come from within because it's been their own inability to close out games or to be the better team in the last 15 minutes. So yeah, it's a huge emphasis for him. He wants this team to be tough, to be physically and mentally tough. And you saw that at Baylor in the way that he built his program. You saw it at Temple in the way that he built his program. As a college coach, he has been able to push the right buttons to build toughness within his team. And I think he's made a lot of strides there in taking Nebraska from where it was when he took this program over to the place where it is today. But there are so many things that you can't do until you start playing games. So to think that they're anywhere close to a finished product is foolish. They've got a long way to go. I would expect we'll see evidence of that tonight.
It's funny that they open with Minnesota, a team that, especially along the fronts, is going to play exactly how Matt Rule wants to play. How much of a measuring stick will this be for them to see where they are? Like, are they really a tough guy team yet that can get in kind of a street fight with someone?
Yeah, it will be a measuring stick. It's maybe not it's maybe not a fair time for Nebraska to put it against the measuring stick. If this game was Week 8, then that might make a little more sense for measuring his program. It's hard to measure a program in game one of a new regime. And Minnesota's been at this for 7 years with PJ Fleck. You're right. Not just is Minnesota the type of program and run the way that Matt Rule wants his program to be run. He's got a lot of respect and talked about it last week for PJ Fleck, the Minnesota coach. He says, I love the way he runs his program. It's different than me, but I love that when I'm in Texas, I can walk into a high school and see Ski Ma and row the boat on a wall. That he says, I know PJ was there. So he's envious of what PJ Fleck has built and the way that he's instilled his culture in Minneapolis. And you're going to look tonight at a program that's in year 7 of doing that versus a program that's in game 1 of doing that. Now, the talent on the field, the disparity is not going to be all that much different. Nebraska is going to have some advantages in terms of talent at some spots, but we'll see if that's apparent in the way that the game's played.
Mitch, with Eric Gilbert's arrest, was he going to play for them anyway?
Not early in the season. No, he had not had a great preseason. Now, his spring and early in the offseason, he was making progress. This is the 5-star tight end out of Georgia who played at LSU as a true freshman in 2020 and spent the last 2 years at Georgia. And as a 2-time transfer, he's still awaiting a waiver. And now he's facing a felony charge for burglary from an incident this week in Lincoln. So his status is even more unknown. But no, he was not going to be even if he had been eligible and did not run into legal trouble this week, he was not in a position based on his training camp that he was even going to be on the travel roster this week.
So, Mitch, have to ask you, I mean, it's football season, big game tonight, but, I mean, what were the festivities like last night, the big volleyball game? I mean, that seemed like just an all-timer of a scene and just a very cool thing to witness in person and be a part of. Can you break it down, just the environment last night and how all that went?
Yeah, people can't stop talking about it, I'll tell you that. I mean, it's followed me from Lincoln last night to Minneapolis this morning. So the talk has not died down. It's all anybody wants to discuss. When I've run into people in red up here in Minnesota, and even people who saw it on TV who don't have connections to the Nebraska athletic department. It was incredible, and I knew it was. Everybody knew there was going to be a big crowd, and that they were likely going to break the world record for a women's sporting event, which they did by a few hundred people, with a crowd of 92,003. But I didn't have a great sense for what it was going to feel like on the field until I got down there courtside before the first serve, a few minutes before the first serve, and just to take it all in. And they had students on the football field, because obviously the volleyball court and the stage that it sat on didn't take up 100 yards of a football field. So they were able to put students right up against the court in addition to the 90,000 or so who were in the seats. And it was incredible. Unlike anything that I've ever seen in that stadium. And there've been some pretty amazing football games played there.
Hey, Mitch, I know you've got game night. Good luck tonight covering the game. We'll talk to you down the road, hopefully. I know Dion in Colorado next week, but Nebraska's got their hands full, and so does Colorado this weekend. We appreciate your time jumping on with us.
All right, thanks for having me on.
Mitch Sherman, the Athletic, with us, covering tonight's game, Minnesota, the Gophers. It's 7 years with PJ Fleck.
Yeah, 7 years.
7 years. I was thinking, someone today, I said, well, they're like 3 to 5 years ahead of schedule. And that's probably, but 7? I didn't realize he'd been there that long.
Yep. Yeah, time flies by, right? But yeah, I remember when he was the big hot coordinator and row the boat and all that. And yeah, he's been there nearly a decade now in Minnesota since, kind of all of the hoopla first began, or you really kind of sensed it years and years ago. But yeah, to think that was 7 years ago is pretty crazy. And man, getting old sucks, huh? Yeah, it just flies by.
You know why I should have thought about it? You're right, Craig. It does. Paul, when Bryles was gone, that's when there was speculation on our radio station in which we were at about who are some of the coaches you'd like to see them talk to. Baylor. And, of course, eventually it was Matt Rule. But his name was in the conversation.
PJ Fleck's. Yeah, absolutely.
Sonny Dykes' name was in the conversation at some point, too. And obviously he had the great year last year for TCU. But, man, it's been 7 years. That's hard for me to imagine.
Yeah, he was a big deal at Western Michigan. Paul was his number one cheerleader. He was really pushing for him to get the Baylor job. I
don't do well with the motivational speaker aspect of PJ Fleck, but I've talked to several people, including today, Pierre Nugent, hosts the PJ Fleck show every week. He was my guest on the Triple Option, and he said, look, he's never been any different. So, sometimes, and a part of that, I think, and that's probably my hang up, but sometimes you see that and you're like, all right, well.
Well, didn't a lot of people think that about Scott Drew?
Yeah, that's true. And so,
but I mean, that's who he is.
I probably lean more like and it's just my hopeless negativism that happens to me, but I think it's more of Hugh Freeze than Scott Drew, where Scott Drew is legit. And, everybody when they first meet Scott Drew is like, there's no way this guy can be this happy. And he absolutely is. That's who he is. And same with PJ Fleck. So, yeah, I'm willing to retract my previous statements.
Yeah, well, it's interesting to see. I mean, he's done a good job up there for the most part. And, now to see that those two are going to be playing each other, given that was, two of the candidates at one point in time, or at least rumored to be, is, just funny that's where we are now, years down the line. Obviously, Matt Rule did a great job getting that job, and it set him up to get this job eventually as well, and come back to the college game. PJ Fleck, stayed there in Minnesota that entire time, and as I said, done pretty well. Just kind of cool that, or weird or funky or whatever, that they're meeting up in this first game. That's such a huge one for that Nebraska football program and for Matt Rule. So kind of fitting in a way if you were following, that speculation back then. But, man, I'm just fascinated to see how Matt Rule does. I mean, knowing what he did over the course of his time at Temple and then at Baylor, and then the NFL stuff didn't go well. I mean, let's face it, that was not a fun time period when all was said and done. I think he's back where he belongs, and I think it's going to show pretty quickly if it hasn't already in some ways. But can't wait to see him roll the football out there and what that looks like.
Mike Craven around the corner, Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine. We'll come back on a feature he had on Baylor defensive coordinator Matthew Pallage, and this is 365 Sports. I was driving through Woodway today, and I saw the big, huge, banners up in the sky. They're having that huge event that's going on, including, of course, it's a wine and food fest. It's going on not this weekend, not this September 9th, a week from Saturday. 6 until 8, $35 a ticket. Wine and food fest night in Italy. You can get tickets by going online, discoverwoodway.com. It will be at the Pavilion at the Arboretum. Enjoy a diverse array of wine, culinary creations, and a night of music. Space limited, $35 per person. VIP tables available too. And the information you want, to buy tickets if you want, go to discoverwoodway.com.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. And if you can't make it to Riverbend, DoorDash is available to bring it to you. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old, and they come every 6 months, and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
Mike Craven, Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine, writes some great articles, and he has one on Baylor defensive coordinator Matthew Pallage. And reading the first line, blew me away. I should know this. We should have known this, but we've had Matthew on most of the time, like when he was rehired by Dave Aranda. The last time first-year Baylor defensive coordinator Matt Palich called a defense was in 2004 at Huntsville High School at a powder puff football game. Mike, I love nuggets, and that is one hell of a nugget.
You know, what was funny is it was the last question I asked them during our 30-minute sit-down. I was about to get up, and I go, hey, did you call any plays at Oregon? When's the last time you called a defense? And he goes, bro, last time I called a defense was, at Huntsville for that powder puff game. And what's funny about it was how passionate he was talking about. I mean, he remembered some plays. He remembered, people in their big plays. Like, he remembered how long it had been since the juniors beat the seniors. And so it was just a funny note to end the interview on. It ended up being the best part of it.
He is a particularly kind of intense coach. Do you think that is kind of the nice balance to Dave Aranda, who is not what you'd call an intense guy?
Yeah, I think so. And, I've known Coach Palich for a long time. He was actually the offensive GA at Southeastern Louisiana when my little brother played offensive line there. And so, he's always been a guy that you knew was going to be, a rising star. We thought it was going to be on the offensive side of the football, which is also what, the article is kind of about, how he bounced back and forth. And, really his first love was special teams coaching, and all those guys are really, really intense, usually, those special teams coaches. And so, you'd expect nothing less from a dude who was a safety who got so big in the weight room. He ended up playing linebacker and then fullback. That's just kind of what he's about, and I do think it brings a little bit of balance to the staff. It's probably needed.
How much was, the part about, I guess, being back in Waco, a part of the conversation, just the one brief year in Oregon? Just how did he kind of address that, if at all, and what were his thoughts on, being back so quickly?
Yeah, I think he was excited to get back. He's a Texan through and through, so being able to coach Power 5 football in the state, for a coach that he really admires. Like, you can tell he really enjoys Dave Aranda and what he's about. They share a similar defensive philosophy, and I think an overall life philosophy, even though that they have different personalities. And so, but also I think that year in Oregon was nice, right? I mean, he worked under another really good defensive coach who's kind of a legend as a defensive coordinator. And so to add kind of another, person to kind of mold yourself under, a role model or whatever, has got to be important. And so I think he's excited to be back. He's excited to call the defense, and I think that year abroad, so to speak, kind of helped a little bit for sure.
So Aranda is in his coaching tree, or vice versa. Willie Fritz also had a little bit to do with Matthew Palich too, correct?
Yeah, Willie Fritz, Casey Keeler, he kind of came through that Sam Houston tree, right? He played there, and so Fritz was kind of the first, that was his first boss, really. He was a GA, volunteer GA for there at Sam Houston before he moved to Southeastern. And so, yeah, definitely coached for a lot of really good coaches, and definitely a rising star in this industry.
Mike, what kind of a recruiter do you think he'll be as he grows? He's already kind of got a little bit of that reputation, but still a young coach. A recruiter he'll be, especially in this state where he is from.
Yeah, I think he's going to be really good on the recruiting trail. I mean, he's young, he's energetic. He's one of those guys that likes star players and putting those star players in positions to go make plays. Like, they're going to try to be more, 2021 Baylor, where you just kind of let those dudes rip. And you need those guys, right? I don't know if the defense had the horses they needed to run that kind of defense last year, and we kind of saw the mishaps for that. So I think he's going to be a really good recruiter. I think he's going to, aim high, and he's a dude that, you want to go play for.
As someone who covers the state so closely and, obviously talking in depth with Palich and others, Mike, what kind of a sense do you get for Baylor? Because we're as close as anybody, and we're a bit stumped as to what exactly expect. I mean, we expect to see an improved team, but as far as, name and numbers of wins and all that, it could vary greatly. Just what are your thoughts about what you've been able to kind of wrap your head around when it comes to Aranda and company trying to bounce back from last year?
It feels more like the team going into 2021 than the one going into 20 or the one going into 2022. It feels like, in hindsight, we should have seen the dip last year. You're not going to lose a Terrell Bernard and a Jalen Petrie and a JT Woods, just all the guys that they lost on both sides of the ball, and be as good. You're just not going to do it unless you're Georgia or Alabama or one of those teams that recruits top 5 nationally every single cycle. And so they were going to take a step back. And the thing I like about Aranda is he's willing to admit mistakes and look in the mirror and try to figure out a different solution. And he was pretty honest about, he didn't want to go in the portal. He thought it was, betraying the guys currently on his roster. I think he learned his lesson. He got some guys that are going to be instant starters and leaders within that locker room. So I think that they're going to be closer to 10 wins than they are to 6 wins. But, you could give me a pretty wide range of final results, and I don't know if I'd be shocked by him.
How ironic, in your opinion, is it that he was once on the defensive side of the staff at Louisiana Lafayette, and Ron Roberts was the head coach. He was the defensive coordinator there, and he's taking his spot now at Baylor.
Yeah, I mean, the ties are crazy. In college football coaching, it's always Kevin Bacon, right? Like, they're always separated by 2, 3, 4, 5 degrees of separation. And, Pallage knew all these guys. Like, he knew Jeff Grimes from those camp days, and he knew Dave Aranda from those camp days. He knew Ron Roberts from running in those circles in Louisiana. So, at the end of the day, I think guys, hire dudes that they trust, and that they hire guys that the guys that they trust, right? And if you're going to replace Ron Roberts with somebody then that's Dave Aranda's guy, right? I mean, that's one of his mentors. To bring in somebody who's an understudy, who kind of thinks the way that you do and believes in the same kind of stuff that you do, is a natural transgression, I think, or a progression, I mean.
Mike, what do you think overall this year, the new Big 12 the new kind of old Big 12, the way it's going to shake out with Texas and OU leaving, Texas being picked to win the league? Do you think this is going to be one that maybe, like it has the last couple of years, someone that no one thinks can come and win this league?
I hope so. I mean, I think like a lot of just lifelong Big 12 fans, like we just hope it's not Texas versus Oklahoma. And it very well could be. I mean, Texas is as talented as they've been in a really long time. And I'm usually the guy who's like, Texas is going to win 7 games or whatever. I think they're going to be really good. They're good up front. They're good on the defense. As long as, Sark kind of grows up and Quinn can stay mature, I think they're going to be pretty good. Oklahoma has such an easy road that it feels like they may be one of those teams to make it. But, if the Big 12 taught us anything, it's that we don't know anything. And so I'm excited to kind of start seeing where it's going to shake out. And I think Baylor, Texas Tech, TCU, I think any of those teams could end up in the Big 12 championship, but I would not be surprised at all.
Ron Roberts, of course, was let go. He's now at Auburn. When he took over, Pallage told us that when Dave Aranda called him, it was just like, hey, we want you back. And he, like you said, he was only at Oregon for 1 year, and he's now a chance to be a defensive coordinator. He wanted to come back to Texas because this is where all his roots are. How do you feel like as far as the transition has been and how comfortable he might be?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all systems go. I mean, just from talking to some of the offensive staff guys, just behind the scenes stuff, like they've been challenged in a way, that they haven't before. I mean, Pallage brings the juice, man. That's an energetic, competitive guy. And sometimes you need that. I mean, we've been around sports enough that sometimes it's not the messenger. It's just how long the message has been being relayed in the same way. And, it felt like a time to make a change, I think, for Aranda, to bring in somebody young, to bring in more energy, to bring in some juice. I think Pallage brings that, and being back in his home state is going to help him recruit really well. And he knows these guys. He knows this roster. He helped bring a lot of them in. And so I think it was as smooth as a transition can be for a coaching staff.
Do you want to tease what you're writing next?
Yeah, I mean, for us next week in the state, I think the big story is going to be UTSA versus Texas State and the Jeff Traylor, GJ Kinney reunion. Everybody knows that, GJ's story. His father obviously played at Baylor, Gary Joe, who was shot at Canton High School, and then, him going to Gilmer and playing for Jeff Traylor, and now, almost 20 years later, they're about to be head coaches playing against each other at rival schools. So, been working on that for a couple weeks now, leading into the season, and we'll publish that Monday. So the season's fun, man. We get to write a bunch of really cool feature stories. It's not a bad gig.
We get to discuss games, performances, what's good or bad. Thank you for your time, Mike. As always, he does a great job. His writing is fantastic. Mike Craven, Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine. The G.J. Kinney story, which we had him on earlier this week. I was at Augusta National when his father was shot at Canton High School that morning. I was trying to go watch the Masters, and I started getting my phone started blowing up, and that was the story from way back when. Luckily, fortunately, he was not killed because it was a bad situation in the field house. And GJ then, of course, they had a great team his junior year, transfers to Gilmer, has a great team there, and look what he's doing. We talked about who's on his coaching resume. It's unbelievable, the names that have touched his career. We are now joined by Max Olson, theathletic.com, with us on Thursdays at 4 o'clock on 365 Sports. Max, we had football, a little bit of it last week. We have a ton of games this week. And before I get to them, what is this thing with you and Ari Wasserman going to each college town to get recruited?
So thanks for bringing it up. So we launched this today. It's the official visit. It's a video series we did on The Athletic. First episode came out today. Ari and I basically spent the whole month of August on the road visiting 5 college campuses and kind of hitting here's the the landmarks and the cool places to check out on campus. Here's the places you got to eat, where you got to drink, where you got to visit, all that. So it's been a fun month of hitting the road and seeing some places I've never been before. And first episode's Ohio State and is up on The Athletic and on YouTube now.
Oh, you guys went really into the deep there. You get is Columbus like the college town of all college towns?
I had never been there before, and I to show you how little I knew about Columbus, when I asked Ari when we were booking these trips, I was like, hey, what do I fly into for Columbus? Assuming it's like Cleveland or something. He said, you fly into Columbus. Like, it's a pretty big city.
Oh, yeah.
I had just never been, didn't know, and came away really impressed. Had a great time out there. Some great restaurants, Land Grant Brewing. The facilities there were super impressive. Got to get back there for a game sometime. Yeah, Ohio State was definitely really impressive. I don't know how many of your listeners have been up there, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's a big town. I think a lot of people don't realize how big Columbus is, Max, but nearly 1 million people. For Max Olson, the recruit, is it cookie cake? Is it the swag? Like, what are you looking for to be wined and dined with? What are your eyes on when it comes to the red carpet?
That's a great note. We should have had a commitment ceremony at the end of the 5 videos of which place we'd be going to. There was no NIL bribery or anything like that on these 5 trips. But for me, for sure, cookie cake is very high on the list. Always envious when you see recruits, checking in their hotel room and having all the candy and cookie cake, already laid out on the bed and all that. Didn't have that kind of whining and dining, but man, we had a lot of fun out there.
Max, we have games tonight. Obviously, we had Mitch on. Sherman, he's up in Minnesota for Matt Rule's debut. Florida, Utah. How much is it, just in your opinion, now we have games, even with there's the simmering of the ACC and what they might do with expansion, but that we are now full throttle into a college football weekend?
Yeah, it's exciting. It's pretty, I literally just landed back home last night from our 5th of 5 trips here, so it's a little crazy to jump right back into game mode here for game week. But and then to have some big games tonight. It's awesome to have this thing rolling. And man, Saturday's going to get here quick, and we're going to have a lot of games to tune into. So I'm excited to see what the Huskers look like tonight against Minnesota. See, can Utah, without Cam Rising, presumably, can they get revenge on Florida for last year? I think we got some good matchups tonight.
Max, Florida State, LSU in Orlando on Sunday is the best game of the weekend, more than likely. Do you think?
How nervous are you feeling? How you feeling, Paul?
I've had nightmares about it since the season ended. Since they won the Cheez-It Bowl, that's been all I can think of is what's going to happen with LSU again, because last year was such a stroke of dumb luck how they won that one. But do you think FSU, with all the transfers, with all the seniors, with all they have, can legitimately not only beat LSU, but then beat Clemson in a month and then stave off all the good teams on their schedule? Because that was the problem last year. They could beat everybody they were favored to beat, but if they weren't favored to beat them, that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, I think that I feel really good about Florida State's chances in this game. LSU's, they're missing Mason Smith. I think there's some questions at running back. I'm curious to see kind of, are they rolling full strength into this one? But, I really like this Florida State team. I think people are, I think these are 2 of the best quarterbacks in the country, even if people maybe don't talk about them like that. And I think Jordan Travis, has a chance to do something really special here. I mean, this LSU team, I just see a few question marks with them. I think the secondary, the run game, some of those things that you're sort of like, all right, are they going to be ready to roll for this one? Because I think Florida State will. I think Florida State's a team that yeah, they added more pieces this offseason as they have, but like I think it's a pretty veteran team that has kind of really finally figured it out and has a chance to really build off last year's experience. And I think that Mike Norvell and his staff have done a really terrific job of building up towards this moment and a chance to really contend and win the ACC. And, it's a big prove-it game for them. And, I kind of lean Florida State in that one. I do.
Max, UCF in action tonight. Don't expect them to get tested too much by Kent State. We'll see. But there's huge expectations coming out of Orlando. There's been a lot of discussion throughout the expansion process of, kind of the potential that lies there at UCF. But with a coach like Gus Malzahn, a quarterback like John Rice Plumlee, how ready do you think they are to just jump right into the deep end here in the Big 12?
Yeah, I definitely think the arrow is pointing in the right direction for UCF. I think that if you can, it's like kind of like what we've seen from Cincinnati under Fickell. Like if you can just have stability, if you can have this coaching staff and hold them together and have this continuity and kind of build a program the way that Gus Malzahn has so far, you see the recruiting uptick, year by year, and you're seeing it right now. They're recruiting at a higher level than ever, it feels like. And, I think it's pointing in the right direction. It's good to have that veteran quarterback for this first year of this. I think UCF is probably going to be, pretty competitive in this conference pretty quickly. I don't know if I see them winning like 9 games this year, but, I think that's probably the one of the 4 that if you are, the returning Big 12 school, probably the one you should be most nervous about, whether it's going down to Orlando or getting them at home. Like, I think that's a team that it's still going to take them a little time to get the athletes they need and really the depth, like the too deep depth to compete for championships. But, they've definitely got some really good pieces. They've also done a pretty good job in the portal. I think UCF is definitely going to be one to watch this year.
And they've had a really good run for the class of 2024. And Malzahn mentioned that there's no question the Big 12 had a lot to do with that. So, you look at the first year and the first full weekend, there is still the simmering of realignment. How much of the broadcast do you think will be spent? The game itself is what's most important, but there's going to be some of that side discussion about what's going on in college football.
Yeah, no doubt. I think that this stuff until we have some closure, I guess, on some of these moves and destinations for some of these schools, you're right. I think it will continue to be something that, over the course of a 3.5 hour broadcast, how can you not talk about it a bunch? And, I think that's especially going to be the case for these Pac-12 schools. It does feel a little crazy that all that stuff was going on in July, August, and then, these Pac-12 schools, especially the ones that got left behind, you have to turn around and go play these teams again for one last time, one more year here. So, I think it's going to be a really fun year for that league. Like if you wish this stuff wasn't hanging over it, because they've got a bunch of, I think, top 25 caliber teams, potentially playoff teams. I think that league race is going to be a lot of fun, but you're right. It's unavoidable that and their future is going to dominate, probably some of the conversation on these broadcasts.
Max, is it strange to you, and look, I know it's Deion Sanders, but that the team that was the runner-up in the college football playoff last year is opening their season, and nobody's going to talk about them when it comes to that game. They're only going to talk about, really, Deion Sanders.
Yeah. I mean, that's just part of the celebrity of Deion, I suppose. That that is going to be what everyone's looking for. Everyone wants to see. Can Colorado be pretty competitive or a lot more competitive with this roster that they threw together this offseason? But man, I mean, you go through the TCU schedule here, like they're going to have some tough tests in September, but I think if you're TCU, like, you're feeling pretty good that you got a chance to get off to a really great start here. They've got Colorado, Nicholls, Houston, SMU, West Virginia, Iowa State, BYU. I mean, potentially a chance to start 6-0 going into a road game at K-State. Like, I wouldn't totally put it past them. I think this team's going to be really competitive, and weirdly, I think you're right. I think weirdly people have kind of been sleeping on them as a contender just based on the fact that they lost as many NFL players as they did.
When it comes to Nebraska tonight, what are you looking for as somebody who, covers the game, but obviously you follow that program pretty closely? What do you need to see to just feel okay about the direction of where things are going, knowing it's not make or break, win or lose tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's just quite a bit of mystery around it. Kind of how are they going to line up on offense and defense? And as always, and sometimes that can be an advantage when you're a new staff going into an opener. Certainly PJ Fleck and his coaches don't have a ton of tape on and expectations of what Nebraska's going to be. You can watch a little Syracuse, you can watch a little Panthers in South Carolina. It'll be interesting to see kind of how they blend their ideas together here. I think the key for Nebraska is just, can you play clean? Can you play without a ton of penalties, without a ton of turnovers and mistakes, stuff like that, which is hard to do in year one. When you got some new pieces, when you got a completely brand new staff pretty much here. Can you keep it close with Minnesota, who I think everyone knows is going to run the ball. And I think they've picked up a good back out of the portal and Sean Tyler. Minnesota always kind of gets Nebraska on skates and knows how to find a way to win those games. And so, Nebraska, Jeff Sims can't turn it over a bunch and make a bunch of mistakes. He's going to play a really high level game and kind of, give them a chance on his own.
Max, you look at what's happening with the Caleb Williams back as a Heisman Trophy winner. Only one person has ever done that before, to win back-to-back in Archie Manning, and there have been some great that have had an opportunity. If he doesn't win the Heisman, who do you think might?
If Caleb doesn't win the Heisman, I think there's going to be a lot of eyes on Marvin Harrison this year. I'm not saying he can win it, but I feel like of all these guys, that's probably the safest bet to make it to New York if he can stay healthy. And obviously, like we saw last year, Jackson Smith and Jigba, couldn't stay healthy and couldn't have that kind of a year. Obviously, it matters that you play 12, 13, 14 games with Marvin Harrison, but I think he's got a big spotlight on him. I think it's a little bit of a different year when you've got new starters at Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State. You would think that those guys can maintain the level of play that's expected there, that they're going to be in the mix. But there's also enough talent in the room that maybe those quarterback battles continue on into the season a tiny bit. We'll see on all three of those. I think the ones I like, I think Bo Nix, I think JJ McCarthy, I think some of those more experienced quarterbacks, they're always going to get the benefit of the doubt with this stuff. And, if their team record's good enough, you feel like they've got a chance. Man, Caleb did some special stuff last week, though. Like, I think that there's certainly kind of this, this intangible factor of just, did you have just a ton of highlight reel kind of plays that nobody else in college football can make? And I would imagine he's going to have a bunch more of those this year.
Max, if you do go to Tallahassee and need a tour guide, I will gladly fly there and meet you and take you all the places that you need to go.
Never been. That would be a great candidate. We think that there will be a season 2, so I may take you up on that.
Yeah, look, I'm available. So
beautiful,
Max. Thank you, sir.
What's the place you got to eat? Paul, give me first one on the list here. What's the must for you in Tallahassee?
If I left today and went, I would land and go get Momo's Pizza. It's like this gigantic slice of pizza that's as big as the desk. It's insane. It's great.
That's exactly what Ari was looking for in every town we went to. So we're off to a good start there.
Yeah.
I've seen Ari. We've had him on with these road trips. You better be careful. You better be exercising.
I did have to start my day on the treadmill a lot at these hotels because you're just in for a lot of food, not the healthiest food. There's quite a bit of beer consumed on these trips. I mean, we got paid to do it, man. What a blessing.
What a great job. Max Olson, theathletic.com, their senior college football writer with us on 365 Sports. He brought up Columbus. It is not even close that they are the largest city in Ohio. I knew they were large, and Craig, you said about 1,900,000. Cleveland and Cincinnati combined do not reach Columbus, Ohio. When we were up there for a high school game back in 2005, and it is a really nice place, no question.
Yeah, I don't think people maybe they do. I don't know, but I don't often talk about just Columbus, Ohio. But I think that, that's probably a surprising stat to most people, your average Joe out there of, hey, what's the biggest city in Ohio? I think you're bound to say probably Cleveland or Cincinnati. But, Columbus dwarfs both of those places population-wise, nearly 1 million people. So, it's a college town, but it's a big old college town, and it's a pro town with the Blue Jackets there as well. So, it's pretty sizable.
All right, when we come back, we're not done. Craig Smoak and Off the Radar just around the corner. We also, today, will hear from Taylor McCark, ESPN. He's at a UAB game, so we'll discuss that with him along with college football's first full weekend. Paul's Top 5 later on, and this is 365 Sports. Pioneer Steel and Pipe since 1943. Been in business, stayed in business. Now bigger, better, faster, and stronger with their brand new location that's not even a year old on the Loop 340 and Highway 6 east of 35 in Waco. Man, they have done a lot of things over the years. One, been able to stay ahead of the curve when some of the big stores come in with a lot more of the product. Costs are lower, and they've been able to match that with what they do when it comes to focusing on you, the customer. If you are a weekend warrior that likes to build things, pipe, steel, metal, or you are a contractor that does a lot of that for a living, then they are a place to be. And on top of that, they will take care of you. It's not just, hey, thanks for being here once. They want you to be there 8 to 10 or 20 times or for a lifetime of your business. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with 1,000 new components and pieces of material inside their 2,500 square foot showroom, 1,000 new pieces. And also, if you go to pick up and it's heavy material, they now have even more of an efficient loading bay dock area, and it was already pretty good at the old place. Pioneer Steel and Pipe since 1943. That says it all. PioneerBoys.com.
Cars priced right, day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
It's another time to speak with Samantha Duvall from TexasBeefHouse.com, handles the marketing and someone that you will talk to a lot when you do call for the great product of the Texas-raised Wagyu beef. It's college football season, tailgating, it's a big deal. People love to put beef and pork and chicken, etc. on the grill. Let me know what you have.
We've got everything. If you've got a morning game, you can get our breakfast sausage or our bacon. You can tailgate with some breakfast tacos. If you've got an afternoon or evening game, we of course got our hamburger patties. They're half-pound patties, 4 patties to a package, and we even have jalapeno and cheese patties. They're amazing. They'll blow your mind. Just that extra flavor, not too spicy. They have a high heat cheese so they don't melt on the grill, and our patties don't shrink up on the grill either. Anytime you order, use our code SICK'EM10 to get 10% off your order of $100 or more.
Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu from our pasture to your plate. That's Samantha Duvall, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, raise your cholesterol, and cause weight gain. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results. So if you're tired of being tired, call or go online at pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $165 a month, including lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, and follow-up visits, compared to $300 or more a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to drive 90 miles one way or the other and fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T has board-certified physician consultations and will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone. Contact Petty Clinic Low T for increased energy, improvement in sexual desire and performance, mood, concentration, even a decrease in body and belly fat. Just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway, pettycliniclowt.com.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
UCF, you're on the clock for the Big 12 tonight. Utah for next year on the clock tonight against Florida. And Kansas, a team that's got a lot of intrigue because of how good they were last year, how much better they were last year. Tomorrow night, they play Missouri State. So those are some of the schools in Arizona State tonight at home against Southern Utah.
I was about to say, your dad's looking at Arizona State guy.
No, I know.
Skipping on the Sun Devils there. Yeah.
I got a text from Drennan Fight. His son is on the Arizona State football team from Tatum, Texas. And the shot of him now compared to before he went there is shocking how much bigger he is. And he was a big, huge kid in the first place.
Yeah, they've got some Texas talent. Jalen Conyers is right where you go immediately when you think of Texas guys and Arizona State. But, yeah, curious to see Kenny Dillingham, first game out of the gates. And, you know, it's just it's weird. You got to remind yourself that you got to kind of take note of them a bit more now, right? Like just the same thing with Utah.
Absolutely.
Like we talk about Utah, Florida tonight anyways, but especially with like, oh yeah, now there's the Big 12 side of that of like, yeah, they're going to be here in a year. Arizona State, Arizona, Colorado, all those games, you know, are a little bit more amplified for us and a lot of our listeners, which is pretty cool.
All right, so the Big 12 today released, this was off on the Twitter handle or X, whatever it's called, but the Big 12 released their season opening just like, it's time to play.
Hey, yeah, you counted us out, didn't you?
The Big 12 Conference made it official, adding UCF, BYU, Cincinnati, and Houston.
The Big 12 has done every positive move to form a pretty dang good league.
They are packed in here.
Nearly 100,000 get to see history.
This is the Big 12.
Making them jump, making them dance, making them jump, making them dance. We about to change the game. We out here taking it. Hey, Sam! Voices rise, let them reach the skies. We about to change the game.
We're a house call. Jump ball touchdown.
Voices rise, let them reach the skies. We about to change the game.
We've always been great at the 12. So put your cold takes about us back on that shelf. We're not survivors. We're thriving. Not down and out, but loud and proud. Not up and coming. We're here right now.
Throws and it's intercepted. Hey, got it. Touchdown.
Let them reach the skies. We about to change the game.
Still counting us out? Keep counting. Big 12 football is back.
All right, I'm one of those that loves that kind of stuff, whether teams do it, and that just lit me up.
I enjoy those, but I think the messaging is interesting to hear, and you can tell it's very the new regime as opposed to you know, Big 12, dumb slogan. Like that was the old thing was Big 12. Something that doesn't make sense.
One true champion.
Well, something that's going to come back to haunt you as a slogan, like one true champion.
The Big 12. We didn't think this out. We took the first thing that somebody said in a meeting, and then we moved on to the next thing. But no, this is clearly like, and look, and I've said it many times on this show, and look, the SEC has earned it, but part of the reason they live in your minds as much as they do is they have been great about reminding you how good they are. Yeah. The Big 12 has been really bad about reminding you that they do have good teams. Yes, they haven't won national titles, you know, in a very long time, but part of that also is marketing. Like the reason that Mizzou and A&M and Ole Miss and Mississippi State and Vanderbilt and Kentucky get this nice bump from being in the SEC is the SEC reminds you how many of their other teams have won all the time, and then those teams are like, yeah, and we play them.
Yep.
And so
that's our family. We're family too. Yep.
And so that works.
Yeah, I mean, but you ultimately have to win those titles, and that's what they've done. I mean, you know, the ESPN bump that's clearly, you know, been in play for a long time now. Their ties to the SEC and the promotions and Feinbaum and all that stuff, you know, that helps. But what really helps is going out and having, a handful of different teams win national championships in the span of 2 decades. Auburn and Alabama and Georgia and LSU and Florida. I mean, all those teams have played and won national titles, and Alabama, Georgia, Florida, LSU have all won multiple titles in that time period. So, I mean, that helps. If the Big 12 had at some point had Oklahoma actually pop one of those playoff appearances and win a dadgum natty, or if Colt McCoy doesn't get hurt, or, any number of things.
Kansas State back in even 98.
Kansas State, there are multiple opportunities. Baylor knocked on the door. TCU last year, you've got to take advantage of those opportunities, and that's the thing the SEC did, because all that talk doesn't really matter if you don't walk, and they've walked the walk and backed it up. But, yeah, I like that the Big 12's talking, and it's not something that they would have been likely to do under previous regimes. I like there's a little bit of an attitude, a little bit of a swagger, if you will, even though that word gets a little bit overused sometimes. But it's present and it's obvious, and it's especially obvious when you saw what it was like beforehand and they had absolutely none to speak of. So there is that. It's going to be a very interesting year just with all the moving in and out of teams. And, it's going to be really weird if, at the end it's Oklahoma and Texas, or if it's not either one of those teams, or if it's some combination of, almost good versus evil or something along those lines. And the road to get there to whatever that's going to look like, it's going to be a memorable one, because this is going to be a very unique year, and I'm glad they're throwing some hype on it.
I do miss that everybody plays everybody, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to bitch about it. I just bring it up because it's kind of true. Goosebumps. Horrible music. It's going to be an exciting year. Paxton.
That's the one thing, though, for any hype video, the most complained about thing, no matter what hype video for whatever thing they're trying to showcase, inevitably there will be disagreements over the music that is used. Yeah. I saw that for years. Tedvid, he used to get knocked constantly. He'd have the greatest video, but then he'd just get hammered for the music selection. Like, the video didn't even matter. So, yeah, I'm not surprised that somebody didn't vibe with that, because that's inevitable with any hype video. But to each their own, and don't, it's not your thing, it's not your thing.
A few more of the responses. This is the new marketing, branding world of the new Big 12. That is well done. And then a few others as well continue to discuss the hype video. Thanks to Joni Lehman for giving us clearance from the Big 12 of running that. Taylor McCarg might be running late because he's got a game tonight. He's got an actual broadcast tonight. So we're going to see what we might do with his segment compared with Off the Radar. And we'll discuss that in the break and come back with either more open discussion and or Taylor McCarg. We'll see. This is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac. You hear me talk about them every single day, and they are the people that you can count on. I'm happy to talk about them every single day because they did a great job for me when I've had to take my car in there a couple times, and they'll do a great job for you, whether you're taking your car into their award-winning customer service department that'll keep you on the road and keep you with the most important thing, not only a working vehicle, but the peace of mind. Like, if you're out there and you're driving a car or truck or an SUV that has problems constantly, that's where I was, and it was just the biggest hassle. I know what a stressor that can be. Any given day you get in your car and you don't know whether or not you're actually going to be in it by the end of the day, or if it's going to get to you where you need to go. So maybe you're just fed up at this point and you need some options. Well, they've got new and pre-owned options for you. But first things first, it is a bit of a mess out front over on Highway 6. That's getting all torn up and redone in front of the dealership. So they want to make you going over there extra worth the effort they deal with all of the construction out front. So right now they've got great deals on 2023 GMC Sierra 1500s. Thousands in discounts for qualified buyers who can also finance for 0.9%, and they've got dozens of Sierras on the lot, plus the inventory and the price and the financing, the total package to get you into a new GMC Sierra today. They've also got the Buick lineup of SUVs, ranked #1 overall brand for new vehicle quality by J.D. Powers. Right now, save $3,250 on the Buick Encore GX. Qualified buyers also get special financing and no payments on the Buick Encore GX until 2024. That's a conversation you can have with them over at the dealership or over the phone or online. And they've also got a lot full of quality pre-owned cars and trucks, as I mentioned as well. If you're looking for something, and something with not an exorbitant price tag, not that everything on the lot is, but if you're especially looking for something that's a little bit more broken in and a little bit cheaper, well, they've got a lot of pre-owned vehicles under $25K right now that you can check out, and their financing philosophy is always 100% credit approval. They say yes when others say no. So whether you're getting your car fixed up with their award-winning service department, which is constantly standing by to keep you on the road and keep your car in tip-top shape, or you're looking to buy new or buy pre-owned, look at Richard Carr, as they are the people that you can count on in Central Texas for 24 years, run by proud Central Texans and proud Baylor Bears. Log on to richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon-wrapped fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes. Cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links. Fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don's Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Welcome back to 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Our weekly segment with Baylor Director of Athletics, Mac Rhodes, is brought to you by Edward Jones Investment Brokers, Ben Erlinson, Brad Wilson, Cam Heathcott, and Chuck Verno. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Taylor McCarg of ESPN joins us. Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina. I'm David Smoak. He's at the UAB game with North Carolina A&T as the broadcast tonight. And UAB with Trent Dilfer, right? With the interesting story with him.
That's right. Yeah, we had a great we had the coaches meetings last night. It was awesome. They also have Alex Mortensen as their new head coach, new offensive coordinator coming from Alabama. He'd been an assistant under Saban for a long time. Son of Chris Mortensen from ESPN, and just the whole staff. Really enjoyed getting to visit with them. I mean, as you know from Trent Dilfer's days, when he went to ESPN and NFL Network and covered the draft, he's got a lot to say. He's a really cerebral, interesting guy, and really looking forward to the vision that they have, the staff that they've assembled. It's a little bit different than what you normally see. But I think there's a lot of excitement in Birmingham for what they're building.
He said something interesting in the offseason about the transfer portal. Like, he was very open about, look, if somebody wants to go to a big-time program, I'm going to help him do that. How much do you think that will help him in recruiting guys who might feel like they need to get noticed but haven't gotten that offer?
Yeah, I think that's something that's been a theme really that we've seen a lot with Group of Five coaches, even into last season. They're acknowledging, look, you've got to recruit your own roster. And in some cases, you may have a guy or two that really, no matter what you do, if they've got eligibility left, they're going to move on. And it's being prepared for that and having a backup plan for if that guy or two leaves. And then it's also trying to be realistic about setting expectations. It's one of the things Trent Dilfer talked about is there's a lot of promises in the NIL world that aren't fulfilled. These kids leave and are promised a lot of money. And they go to schools and then it doesn't show up. And we've seen that in a few different cases in high profile recruits. But that was one of the things that he talked about yesterday, specifically that. And I felt like they've got a couple of guys that, hey, this may end up being an NFL guy, and we hope that we can keep him here longer than a year or two.
Taylor, you're also going to be on the call this Saturday for Liberty and Bowling Green. What are your thoughts on just what to expect from Jamie Chadwell getting started there at Liberty, and what's it like for you? Just is it a lot of airport travel? Just kind of how does life ramp up? Once the ball gets kicked off like it is this week.
Yeah, it is a lot, but it's fun. I mean, I enjoy a little bit of chaos. I've got the 5:30 a.m. flight out of here tomorrow, and the Liberty Bowling Green game is, it's another head coach starting over with Jamie Chadwell going from Coastal Carolina to Liberty. And what's interesting in that game, you've got two different quarterback battles. Bowling Green, they're still sorting out who their guy is going to be. Liberty's kept it. I mean, they still have three guys that they've said are still in the running for who's going to take the first snap. So, again, in this transfer portal era, you really don't know what to expect in week one anymore. It's really difficult. There are a few programs where, you turn on tape from last year and more often than not, that's really what it's going to look like. And the guys from last year are back. But so many of these programs now, I mean, Liberty has more than 50 new guys on their roster top to bottom. And UAB is similar. And going into week one, you do as best you can studying tape from last season, but you're really just trying to make sure you're familiar with the new pieces on the team and then just react when they get on the field.
Do you think that the changeover, Dion, Colorado, G.J. Kinney, Texas State, and among the ones you mentioned, will that lead maybe to some eye-opening upsets, or will that lead to maybe bad football?
I think there's definitely the opportunity for upsets. And I wouldn't say that would be the case with Dion. I think being 3 touchdown against TCU is probably about right. That roster turnover was significant. They lead the country and new players on their roster. But I think in the transfer portal era, you see a lot of these lines that Vegas puts out. They have baked in a lot of cases, if it's a Power 5 school playing a Group of 5 school, or sometimes even a Group of 5 playing an FCS, there's a little bit of juice in there for if it's a name brand school. And sometimes that may not be the case, that they really deserve to be a favorite in some cases. We see it every year in college football. It'll happen this week. Maybe it's tonight, but somewhere along the way, this week one, somebody's going to go down to either a lower level opponent than FCS. It's just the nature of the game in college football.
Tonight, Nebraska and Minnesota play. Matt Rule's first rattle out of the box for the Huskers. What do you expect to see from that team? Also loaded full of transfers.
Yeah, same thing. I think it's hard to know really what did they bring in that's going to be able to impact them right now. Matt Rule in years past, you guys know this better than anybody, Baylor and at Temple, year one was more about setting culture and then building for something in years 2 and beyond. And I don't think Nebraska fans have the patience for that. And so I would expect they're not going to tolerate a 2-win type of season or a 3-win type of season. That game is interesting for 2 reasons. I think Minnesota had more success last year than a lot of people gave them credit for. PJ Fleck has built a fantastic program at Minnesota. But I do expect Nebraska, there's enough talent that's coming back from that team, coupled with what they went out and got in the portal. I expect that should be a pretty competitive game.
So we had last weekend in a number of games to really, see and dive into. And I saw in your timeline, the poll about the new clock changes. What were your thoughts in seeing that? I know it's a very small sample size, but just what were some of maybe the immediate things that came to mind when you saw how that was affecting games, at least last week?
Yeah, you know what? I saw a lot of people that really were complaining about it, and they didn't like that feature. I'm for it. I think that trying to cut some of these games down, especially these games where you get high-flying offenses where they're throwing the ball around and they're getting up into the 500 yards of total offense, you will cut down on – they're trying to avoid these 4-hour games. If it's 2 running teams, take Navy and Notre Dame, for example, you didn't really see the impact in that game. I think it's more impactful on air raid type offenses playing one another where, we had a couple games last year that total runtime was almost 4 hours, and that's what we're trying to get away from. I think there's a piece to this that is farther down the line, but I think there's a conversation that's out there for adding a 13th game, and you hear it get brought up every now and then. If they can really, the NCAA can point after this season and say, we eliminate 3 to 5 minutes of game time out of each one of these games over the course of the season. Can they go back and add a 13th game? I think that's a lot of that's hearsay and rumor, but it's something that I'm paying attention to. If they're able to cut down enough of what a 12-game season would have looked like stopping after first down, does it make it easier to really have that conversation about a 13th game?
Taylor, I am of the belief that the spread teams won't notice it hardly at all. I mean, you're already just humming along, so they probably won't notice it until the end of the game anyway, wouldn't you think?
I think that's probably right. And once you get inside the last 2 minutes of the second quarter and the fourth quarter, you get it back. And so, at crunch time when it matters most, it's still there. Again, what you're trying to avoid is teams that maybe aren't playing great defense. It's a track meet going up and down the field. And if teams aren't using tempo, pick up a first down, clock stops, get on the ball. There should be clock running off there. That's why I'm in favor. I don't think we need these constant stopping and starting over and over and over with the way that it's obviously a pass-first form of football that we really have in college football these days.
Taylor, I don't know if you're like a lot of people and not have the Pac-12 network. Not sure how much you got to see of Caleb Williams last week, but you can weigh in on that and just whether or not you did. What are your thoughts when it comes to the stars to watch for this year, the Heisman race, and where does your mind kind of go besides Caleb Williams?
Yeah, well, the first thing is that he's incredible. I think that flat-footed throw, the long touchdown, there are a handful of guys, not just in college football, but there are guys in the NFL that are starting quarterbacks that can't make that throw. That's the first piece. I think there's a reason that he's a favorite to repeat as a Heisman. The second piece was I was pretty disappointed in the other side of the ball. I thought the defense for USC, that San Jose State team is going to be right at the top of the Mountain West Conference, but the expectation for USC is to try and win the Pac-12 and get into the Final Four. And that defense that they showed last weekend is not going to get them there. There needs to be a major jump, especially up front. But their performance, I thought left a lot to be desired. That touchdown right before half from San Jose State, they marched down the field in 3 or 4 plays right before half, picked up kind of a cheap touchdown. To me, that just screamed complacency and an attitude. You hoped there'd be an attitude change from last year, and I just didn't see it.
All right, one more thing. I know you got to go. We appreciate you on a game night. This is awesome as you're ready for UAB and their opening game with Trent Dilfer. Without Cam Rising, Utah at home against Florida, who beat them last year. Florida trying to figure out things under Billy Napier. How much, in your opinion, does that affect the way Utah plays their game on offense?
Yeah, I think it's huge. I think that game could be a rock fight. the thing that I am really paying attention to in that game is Graham Mertz run out of town from Wisconsin. There were not a lot of people in Wisconsin that were sad to see him go. I am interested to see, is there any sort of improvement in his play under Billy Napier? Because you hear whispers about some of the Wisconsin staff maybe reaching out after they were let go, saying, I think we limited him in some respects, and maybe there was more left on the table that we didn't fully exhaust with him. For Florida to have success, he's going to have to play well, and he's going to have to play better than he did the last couple of years at Wisconsin. If he doesn't, it looks like what he was at Wisconsin, that's going to be a Florida team that they're probably going to lose tonight, even with Cam Rising not play, and they're going to be in the bottom half of the SEC East certainly, and really struggle this year. So Graham Mertz is really the guy that I'm paying attention to tonight for Florida.
Have a great broadcast tonight and tomorrow. As Craig brought up the game you have, back-to-back nights. Taylor McCarrick, ESPN, with us on 365 Sports.
The other game's on Saturday, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he'll get at least a little bit of a break.
And he's doing a little bit of both with ESPN and also the CBS network as well. Hey, by the way, Two Chains, great to hear from you in the chat room. He's a Woodrow Wilson.
Two Chains.
Yeah, Woodrow Wilson graduate, Heisman High, the only high school in America that has two Heisman Trophy winners coming from the same high school, Davey O'Brien in the 30s and Tim Brown when he was at Notre Dame. When we come back, Craig Smoak and Off the Radar, and this is 365 Sports. Texas Beef House. Earlier, it may have been a day or two ago, Diesel was in the chat room, and he was asking about Texas Beef House. I think Diesel lives in South Carolina. And we've had this question before. Do they deliver around the country? They're out of East Texas. They deliver to any of the 49 contiguous states in the United States as far as where we are. Hawaii, I guess, is a different story. Wagyu regular hamburger patties. I was on the phone with Samantha last week, and this blew me away because I've always been a little leery about any kind of a hamburger patty that also has cheese in it because it's just going to melt right out of it, right? It's going to dissolve or evaporate. That's not how they make their burgers when it has cheese in it. The way they make it and the way it's put together, the cheese will remain within the beef. Also, Wagyu jalapeno and cheese summer sausage, garlic links with cheese, ground beef, flat iron, filet, ribeye, New York strip, tri-tip, brisket. You're talking about tailgate season, and we've begun in TexasBeefHouse.com where they can have what they raise on their farm, on their ranch, in White House just outside of Tyler, can go straight to your plate. All you have to do is get online and order, TexasBeefHouse.com. There's a discount code if you watch this show, SICK'em10. You get a discount, a 10% off discount. Tell Samantha you watch us and we brought it up. TexasBeefHouse.com.
I hate my job, but I don't mind getting up in the morning. I dread each day, but I can't wait to get out of bed. You ask me why, and what I'll say to you is true. Well, you can get breakfast tacos at Rudy's Barbecue. Scrambled eggs and brisket, they ain't fooling around. Sausage wrap, son, they're the best in town. Barbecue for breakfast, yes, it's true. Put a smile on your morning at Rudy's Barbecue. Next in line.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jeweler, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store and more.
At
Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is a premier elite life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers over 40 group exercise classes every week, including boot camp, indoor cycling, bar, silver sneakers, and more. If you haven't been to Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness lately, you're missing out on the improvements. New flooring in the weight room floor and locker rooms, new paint and mirrors added to the weight room and group exercise room, and many new machines have been added and arriving constantly on the weight room floor. New free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, new ellipticals on the spacious weight room floor. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, Alex Box, and welcome to Nathan Roach, where you will be encouraged and motivated to grow. A kids club included with your membership, plus sauna, whirlpool, and tanning bed. 16 tennis courts plus a beautiful stadium court, and longtime youth tennis pro Britt Coleman and assistant junior Kenna. Adult tennis lessons and clinics with Blake, and the commitment to pickleball with 8 courts and instructor Jody Thurman. Visit the website at wacotennis.com or visit us at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
This is Craig Smoak's Off the Radar, presented by Alliance Bank. They take pride in making banking easy. AllianceBankTexas.com.
All right, welcome into Off the Radar here on 365 Sports, Tuesdays and Thursdays at around 4:45. We take a look at just a grab bag of headlines or newsy news, if you will, just stuff of interest from around the various landscapes of athletics, and we'll still have some college football. And matter of fact, I got one college football note in particular I'll get to as far as the ratings from last week for Notre Dame and Navy. But first, wanted to start off with a little bit of NFL talk and just kind of an update on all of the cuts that have been going on. Like, I'm not going to give you a rundown of where everybody's landed, and to even try to do that from a conference point of view would be, I mean, nearly impossible. I will say that I was looking at the NFL schools list last night, and it is absolutely absurd how many Alabama football players. They have over 50 guys in the NFL, which is just, and not just like in the NFL, not practice squad well over 50 freaking players. And Ohio State's got a great number. You know, Oklahoma's like 30 plus. But, I mean, I know we just, like, it's just old hat. Like, that's just what Alabama does and all that. But, like, man, I think we're going to look back and just be like, I mean, that's just, it's absurd how many guys they have in the NFL at this point. Yeah. I mean, it really is.
Yeah, because just because you're drafted or signed, and even if you're like a high round pick, that doesn't guarantee anything.
No.
That means you also have to earn it. And, yeah, if you're a high round pick, you might be given a little extra time. But it's a what have you done for me lately business in the NFL.
Yeah, and I don't know what the final total is because there's just so much movement going on, like I've said, but I was just counting one by one, and there were still a lot of other transactions taking place, and I was just blown away by how large that contingent of guys now is in the NFL. I don't think we've ever seen anything like that before, but given how they recruit and the success they've had, it's not surprising. But I am going to bring back at some point when everything settles, like a list of who's got the most, and we can discuss that because there's going to be a lot of Georgia and Ohio State and all that, but the numbers are pretty crazy. So anyways, just a little note as far as here goes. We were talking a little bit the last time around about some of the moves that have been made as far as Baylor. I did want to say that Henry Black has landed on a practice squad with the Colts. William Bradley King landed back on the practice squad of the Washington Commanders. Connor Galvin landed on the practice squad of the Lions, and Mark Milton landed on the practice squad of the Carolina Panthers. So those are guys at least found those practice squad parachutes. Also, Ben Sims got cut by the Vikings, but then, as Paul was pointing out, got picked up off waivers, and so therefore he goes straight to Green Bay's regular season 53-man roster, which is a bump up for him because he was kind of lost in the depth of the Vikings tight ends room. So that's a boon for him. And then what'd you say, Tyquan Thornton now on injured reserve to start off the season. So those are just some of the notes. And if you're a Sikkim365.com subscriber, tomorrow I should have a whole wrap-up around where things stand with players in the NFL when it comes to Baylor in particular. Maybe I expand that as time goes along, but we'll definitely take a look at like the total numbers when everything dies down a little bit. But I did mention the Commanders with William Bradley King, and story today is that they are still very much pondering the idea of changing the name already. The Washington Commanders name, I think that's been out there for a little while, but there was some scuttlebutt of maybe they not only change the name, but maybe they go back to being the Washington Redskins again, right? That's been out there, like just speculation, and maybe they could possibly go to that, but you can go ahead and shoot that down. They are not going to go back to the Redskins name, although they are being open-minded about potentially changing the name after this season. Team president Jason Wright was on 106.7 The Fan in D.C. when asked about switching back to the Redskins, said it is not being considered, period. That also via the Washington Post. So I saw this on Twitter mostly. You know how that goes. Just anything's out there. But I saw like a little kind of a building wave for that. And to the point of like, well, could it really happen? And they just completely shut that down.
Well,
today.
if they would have done what Florida State did, had they been proactive, had the owner not been a complete like idiot, they could have worked around this a little bit. They could have had a relationship, partnership with various Indian tribes. They could have found a way to make that work, but all he did was dig his head in the sand.
Yeah, and I think too, but I think you're right. They could have done it in a more respectful way that maybe they could have passed it along, but I think that name is compared to saying the Seminoles, which is an actual tribe and has history and all that. That's different, and I'm with you. I see why it's problematic and why it shouldn't be a name. I also understand people's love for it, and it's not anything to do with negativity or racism or anything like that. But yeah, it's just I think a bit too stigmatized, and just the name itself. Now, when you kind of think about it, it's like we can't go back to that. That would just be impossible. But he did say I think everything's on the table in regards to a potential name change, especially after this year. We'll see where we are with the name, but I can't say for sure right now.
Yeah, so I think you're right. I think it would have been a delicate needle to thread.
Yeah.
And you know what happened? Because I remember I watched a long story on it somewhere, and they showed a video of, because it wasn't just Daniel Snyder that had to deal with it. Jack Kent Cook dealt with it as well, and Jack Kent Cook was not great about it either. But if Dan Snyder, when he had taken over a long time ago, had just said, look, this is the name of our franchise. Let's get together and find out how we thread this needle. If he had at least done that, then maybe the noise around it and the understanding of it would have changed, because then it's a discussion between two sides of an issue, as opposed to one side saying like, hey, we're not nuts about this name and you making all this money off it. And then the guy who can do something about it going, bleep you, I don't care. That's what made it worse. And of course, that was his whole attitude towards every single thing in life is I'm rich, get out of my way.
Yeah, no doubt about it. He was not going to be the guy to make that happen.
Oh, they could be the Washington Generals, Phil said, like they used to lose every game.
Yeah.
Phil, that's
taken. That would have been fitting for the last several years, for sure. The hopes are that will not be the case, though, and they would not be anything close to the Washington Generals moving forward with Josh Harris now as the owner. So, yeah, we will see on that. I know Garrett's, you're up for a name change, right? You're also a Commanders fan.
Yeah, I hate the Commanders name.
Yeah.
I think maybe something unique like Warhogs, something tie it with
trying
the
to bring
hog.
the offensive linemen back.
Yeah,
Why can't they just bring those offensive linemen back?
Well, that would be nice. I think we'd all appreciate that.
But that'll be something where the three of us will all be very interested. I think Paul, you'll still be interested in that. But yeah, let's see how they do this year, and then that's something we'll revisit.
Static Fur. Why don't they make a relationship with a tribe and name it after that particular tribe? And maybe there's a...
I think that time has passed, too, though. And that's for everybody. Like,
right,
the
Indians are the Guardians.
Yeah, if Florida State opened today and said, man, we really like the history and tradition of the Seminole Indian tribe, and called them up and they said, hey, what do you think? They'd probably say no. Just because it's just past the time of that. But I would like Commanders always felt to me like it's not even from a high budget movie, like a low budget movie about a professional football player and a dog.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that's what
it reminds
the
me of
Commander's name. Yeah.
Keanu Reeves and the Replacements, and
the
they were
Sentinels.
the Washington Sentinels.
Yeah.
And, I don't like that.
And
it's
that's
always
a better name.
Yeah, it actually is. It actually rolls off the tongue about Sentinels. Yeah, it's cooler than Commanders, but we'll see on that. We touched on this with Mitch Sherman and Max Olson during our time with them, but last night in Nebraska, Lincoln Memorial Stadium, 92,003 fans were in attendance as they broke the world record for largest crowd at a women's sporting event. 92,003 spectators in attendance. So setting a new record there, and it just looks like it was about as fun as possible. The previous record was 91,648. So eked it out, but had a little bit of breathing room there as well. But that was for a 2022 Champions League match between FC Barcelona and Wolfsburg that was in Barcelona, Spain. So that's the record that they broke. This was also paid attendance. Like they wasn't just everybody showed up for free. So they made a pretty good money off of it, and it was really cool. I don't know if you saw the video of they had the Alan Parsons Project Sirius like they do for I guess the Bulls, that's what the Bulls used, right, was the Alan Parsons Project Sirius, but Nebraska's had that entrance music for a long time, so they had the full meal deal of walking out of the tunnel and running out, and it just seemed like a really cool thing to be a part of. So a new world record for a women's sporting event.
Couple of things. Someone said, how come they have more people at a game to watch volleyball than they had even during their glory years in football? One, the stadium's gotten bigger. They could people were on the field.
Yeah,
it's like a concert, and so they were able to put thousands of more people on the field around the volleyball court that was set up earlier in the week.
Yep, that's how that was done, and it looked like is pretty cool. No matter where you were sitting, but especially I think if you're on those field level seats, that was probably one of the better ones. But yeah, that's how they were able to do it, and Nebraska's milking that as they should. It was a very cool event, and now new world record set, and that was just a couple years old, the previous one. So we'll see who comes up with an idea to do something that tops Nebraska, but I don't think they're going to let go of that easily. All right, a couple of other notes before we move along here. Just a couple of NFL things. Matt Corral picked up off of waivers, former Ole Miss quarterback, and the Patriots now have an actual backup quarterback. They released all their quarterbacks outside of Mac Jones this week, including Bailey Zappi, but Matt Corral now picked up off of waivers. And Paul, any particular thoughts on the Patriots quarterback situation and them choosing Matt Corral to be the guy behind Mac Jones?
Oh, yeah, it's weird for the first week that he's going to be they might elevate. They can do that with Bailey Zappi
off the
practice squad. Malik Cunningham, I knew they were always going to try to squeeze him through. I think that Bill Belichick's got kind of a Cordell Stewart plan for him in the long run. Bailey Zappi, to me, that was weird. I mean, of course, that was roster gymnastics, and they were. I thought they were lucky that nobody claimed Bailey Zappi. I think that was a real stroke of luck because, if you're a team out there that is kind of iffy on your backup quarterback or someone developmentally, he played last year and played pretty well for a fourth-round draft pick from a smaller school. So I'm interested to see, and obviously Bill Belichick liked Matt Corral, and I like Matt Corral. I mean, but he just didn't get to play last year. He was hurt, and they have a new regime, and that was just bad news for Matt Corral.
Yeah, well, it's good news today. I mean, he's getting an opportunity off of waivers. So again, it's such a whirlwind of who's designated what injury or practice squad, or they're just free agents and they're this or they're that. So give it a few more hours or another day, and it should finally be settled in now as the regular season approaches. And the final thing, this will be more of a regular update as we get into college football and the NFL season and we start to get the ratings. Don't make a huge deal out of it. Just like to kind of use it as a gauge and just kind of it's a cool thing to look at from time to time, not to compare and not to, promote one conference over the other or anything like that. Just interesting to look at. So one example that we've got to start off with this season, we'll have many more here in the next few days, but Navy and Notre Dame from last weekend in Ireland, 3.56 million viewers on NBC. And that sounds pretty good, right? But it was actually down quite a bit from last year's week 0 from Ireland, which was Nebraska-Northwestern, which pulled in 4.42 million. So a pretty significant drop, but still 3.5 million plus people. So that was a nice number, and that's how the college football season got started. And we'll see, because there will definitely that Florida State LSU number ought to be something pretty special.
8 to 10? That high? Or is it? I know there's a lot riding on it early, but
there might be.
Could that be a $6 to $8 million?
At least 6, I would say, for sure.
Yeah.
And 10, I don't know. I'd have to kind of look at the numbers last year to kind of see what the averages sort of were for games like that. But yeah, I would definitely think pretty high, over 6 for sure.
Yeah, I mean, look, it was a high-rated game last year, and they both were unranked. So now they're both top 10 teams.
Logos.
Yeah, and
Spotlight, too. That Sunday night.
Sunday night game.
Yeah, that Sunday night Labor Day weekend game
last year
is huge.
6.45.
Then it'll be 8. I think with both teams, the way they finished, the hype, the expectations, highly ranked, both top 10. They were unranked last year.
Look, I want everybody in the world to watch it so that Garrett is embarrassed.
Whatever. Yeah, I'm glad we're going to get this settled. The bad blood between you two the last couple of weeks has just been very you're walking on eggshells here. But no, seriously, I'm looking forward to whoever's able to brag about that, and looking forward to just seeing that game. But there you go. There's a few things off the radar.
All right, Craig, thank you very much. I have an idea about the opening week of the Texas Beef House.com gift cards, and I'm about to unveil what we'll do in week 1. We're going to change it up. I know a lot of you want to just do straight predictions, and I honestly think maybe we'll do that occasionally with a link we can send you to. But the first week, and where are we right now with, we've got a bunch of you still on. We'll come back, and how you or someone else, you cannot vote for yourself, can win a $100 gift card to Texas Beef House that includes a couple of college football games and just me making something up, honestly. Levi Caraway was here. Owen was here. Levi is still here. Emery Winter, Jack McKenzie, and Garrett Ross. This is 365 Sports. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it. You can go online, marcos.com, and order whatever pizza you want, and they have discount codes from whether it's a pepperoni, magnifico, all meat, whether it's it depends on which pizza brand you're talking about that's got a combination of meat and vegetables, green pepper, bell peppers, and onions. I've always called them green peppers, but they're different colors. You have what you want, just straight pepperoni, thin crust, thick crust, whatever you want. And then on top of that, sandwiches, chicken wings, and of course, if you want something to drink too, and salads. Marco's Pizza. Bob Mock, I've known him really for a long time, about a decade. Got to know him back when he was working for a different pizza company. He's done that for a long time as far as been in the business, the profession, and then he launched his own 5 locations of Marco's Pizza here in the Waco area. Hewitt, Woodway, Chita Spring, Bell Mead, and also in Robinson, Texas. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
Save big during the Labor Day sales event at Allen Samuels. Get a new Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited with $3,500 plus 2.9% for 72 months with no payments for 90 days at Allen Samuels in Waco.
Come by. Let's be friends.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon wrap fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes. Cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Chuck Verno, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Chuck Verno, 720 North 64th Street in Waco, 254-732-1161. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is brought to you by Edward Jones and financial advisor Cam Heathcott. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right. This week, we're going to come up with something on the $100 gift card. Kim Coulter bought 15 of those babies from TexasBeefHouse.com and wants to give them back to those of you in the chat room. It's about the chat room. So we've kind of gone over this a lot, trying to figure it out. Straight up predictions to me, maybe once or twice in the year. Otherwise, that could be a little bit monotonous. So Levi can come up with a couple of games we put up. Is that right, Levi? And if they pick them, then you can find out who goes 2-0, 3-0, 4-0, whatever, correct?
Yes.
That's not what he wants to do.
No.
All right, here's what I'd like to do.
Just a lot of people might have this thing.
Yeah, okay. Here's what I thought about the first week. We've been on the air since April of 2020. The chat room has gone nuts. How about we get everybody in the chat room? You cannot vote for yourself, but you vote for who you think should win in the chat room, your favorite personality.
Okay.
Craig?
I mean, I just want us to come up with a solution. So, yeah, I mean, whatever works best, because I've been hearing all the back and forth on how it should work. But
yeah, and Kim, we don't want this to just be just throw it up there. But I've been trying to figure this out. Now, you may say beer cans and baddies. How do you know it's me? I will. We've got data, okay? So, Garrett, what do you think? On the first week, everybody votes. We'll give them a number that they can text the name of the personality in the chat room.
Yeah, I think that might work. I'm kind of confused on that, but I think it might work.
No, for example, there's Return Trip and 2 Chainz, and that's a great name. Rhino Reselling and Static Fur and Michael. You tell us, I'm going to give you my email to Sikkim. It's one that is a separate email from my others. And I'll give you the email, and you send in who you think is your favorite personality in the chat room. How about Jeb?
Yeah. So, Double O'Neill, to answer your question, you're voting on. You can't vote for yourself. Your favorite personality in the chat.
Like, let's say Static Fur likes 2 Chainz. Static Fur, I'm gonna put up the link to my email in about 10 seconds or whenever, and you can send an email to me. Include your personality name on chat, and then you tell me who's your favorite person in the chat room. Whoever gets the most votes, and I'll cut it out, it'll be done by 10 p.m. tonight, 10 p.m. Central for all of you in different time zones. Whoever has the most votes will get the original $100 gift card from Texas Beef House. Does that make sense? Yeah. Send them my email, which is my business email with Sikkim, so I'll be able to keep track of them. All right, I'm about to put the email up.
All right. Good deal. Everybody, do this with integrity.
10 p.m. Central deadline.
Which is the code of chat rooms all over the internet.
I'm about to put up my email, and there it is. It's in the chat room. All right? So there we go. There we go with that. Mickey Spagnola will join us in about 15 or 20 minutes. We'll have him. I don't know if we mentioned this, Craig, when you brought up Nebraska volleyball. I saw this article. They are the only women's program that makes money.
Yeah, well, I mean, like they, which is unbelievable. But there's a lot of them that spend a lot of money. There's not a lot of athletic departments that make money in general.
No, they don't.
So,
for example, we've even used this example. Even though Baylor had that great run under Kim Mulkey for the longest of times, even when they were winning national titles, there was a deficit at times, a budget of $4, $5, or $6 million. As much as they were on TV, as often as they were in the tournament, and as going to the championship or close to it. And all of what they did with ticket sales at the Farrell Center, they were still losing a ton of money.
Well, yeah, because you're making, a few $1,000s at the Farrell Center and then spending more thousands of dollars on trips to Greece. I mean, or, at Italy or whatever for exhibition games. And I'm not taking
some
away.
Some of that is taken up by.
That's donations and stuff too, but
they don't get the TV money.
No, they don't.
Yeah. They don't have the money like the men's tournament. They don't have the money for sure at college football. They're trying to change that because they had great numbers last year. But the bottom line is the revenue flow in is very, very nil compared to the other sports we mentioned in men's basketball and football.
Yeah, and it's really not the trips to Greece. That's once every 4 years to get to do that. It's spending more than you probably should sometimes in trips
on
to
hotels,
Oklahoma City.
Amenities, hotels.
Yeah, exactly.
I wasn't trying to be
City,
super specific, but I think that they had some pretty cozy digs wherever they went to.
Mm-hmm.
And
should I tell that story about the receipt?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right.
No, we need to keep that under wraps. But yeah, I mean, it's those kind of things. And then the other, look, they athletic departments also are not like this is a new thing of them making money. Which is why there's this mad dash for TV money, because it's such a new thing. Because when they were originally decided to do college, it was not for profit.
Right.
You were not college in general, not for profit. And the athletic department was just part of that. It was just an extension of that. Okay, we're going to give scholarships to people to come play sports at this school. Well, it's not going to be for profit. Well, that's not how they're trying to work it anymore. So anybody making money is a relatively new thing in the world of sports business. It will probably change over the next generation, but for the longest time, if you mentioned to somebody like, hey, we can make some real money on this game, they'd be like, what are you talking about? We're at college. We don't do that here. That's not what there's for. The college is supposed to take money and just spend it, not make it, and take that however you want. But that's why none of this really seems to make a lot of sense, because the people running it are learning new business models every single day.
Yeah, it's not you have two sports that make money. There are some baseball programs that probably do pretty well, but the bottom line is the money that's generated by the men's basketball tournament, the units, and then also with all of college football helps pay for everybody else in the athletic department. That's it. That's the bottom line. All right, when we come back, Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com. This is 365 Sports. Don Shumidor and Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center, just between Richland Drive and Valley Mills in Waco. And a place that has a 48-foot walk-in humidor with all the great brands of cigars, Padron, Cohiba, Ashton, Macanudo. You want it, Romeo and Juliet, they have it. Artur Fuente, yes. Rocky Patel, which is my favorite. They have a bunch of different, options of Rocky Patel cigars as well. They have CBD products, Vita Dreams, that helps you at night perhaps relax enough to where you fall asleep earlier, sooner, quicker, whatever words you want to use, and you get that extra 35 minutes to an hour of sleep. And on top of that, they have THC products for those days that are bad days. In fact, one of the packets that you can get inside Don Shumidor is called Bad Days. It's for people that have really chronic pain or even worse, that they're battling something else health-wise. Don Shumidor and Coffee Beans with Carol, Ashley, and Cheyenne in the Town West Shopping Center between Richland Drive and Valley Mills in Waco.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why we take the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott in Conroe at 936-756-7717. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
Here we go, this 5 o'clock hour. Paul's Top 5 around the corner on this Thursday night. College football games tonight. We've discussed a bunch of them, even looked ahead to a couple of them this weekend. Paul, tomorrow, what time is your triple option?
No triple option on Fridays.
Okay.
We're Monday through Thursday.
Regular show you have on Friday, 3 to 6.
Yeah.
And the emails are coming in, so thank you for that. When it comes to the TexasBeefHouse.com first week, our promotion, thanks to Kim Coulter. Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com. Mickey, a tough day. It has been a couple of years, really, since I'd seen Gil. Paul said that as well when it comes to when he gets to go to the games. Just an absolute rock star in Dallas Cowboys and NFL history, well ahead of his time. And your thoughts when you first heard the news?
Yeah, you know, and David, we were sort of braced for it when we went to training camp, had heard that he was not doing well. And, you know, the last time I talked to him, and it might have been, I don't know, maybe a year ago or so, I remember it was a short conversation, and it felt like he couldn't wait to get off the phone. and that's not Gil, right? Gil would talk forever and ever and ever. And he'd tell you stories after you got what you needed from him when you called him in the first place. So I had a feeling that he had, was sort of going downhill. 91, I think we'd all take that, right? If somebody offered it to us.
Yep.
And have the 91 years that he was able to live with all those years with the Cowboys and basically helping to raise the organization. And it just reminds me that, the guys that know the history of this team and all the things in the past are kind of leaving us. And there's no one to call and say, wait, what happened with this? Or why did that happen that way in 1965, And the only person I can think that sort of left to check in with is Joe Bailey, who was Texas executive vice president back, late 60s, early 70s. But he had grown up with the Cowboys because his dad was one of the physicians. It's kind of a sad day. I think we were braced for it, but what a glorious contribution he had made to the Cowboys.
And the NFL, Mickey, look, I mentioned earlier in the show, but maybe people don't know this. The NFL draft used to be pretty mundane when it came to picking players. It was just a bunch of guys in suits in a boardroom going through the college magazines and picking guys like that. Gil kind of invented modern scouting and, going to the lengths that he did to find the athletes that made those Cowboy teams.
Yeah, he had told me the story, the first draft he participated in. So the Cowboys' first draft was 1961, because when they got the franchise for 60, the draft had already, it was in January. Well, the draft had already taken place in November, so they missed that draft. So in 61, he said he ended up going to, I forgot the name, it was an old hotel in Philadelphia. And he goes, and we basically went into one of these conference rooms, and we, there was 13 teams at that time. They were sitting around a big table. And he said everybody walked in with their Street and Smith college preview magazines, the preview magazines, right? And that's what they were using for their research on guys to draft, using the information that was there. And the other thing that he told me about, and was pretty funny, he said, so you walked in with the magazines and you walked in with a couple rolls of quarters. And I said, quarters? He goes, yeah. He goes, there were no phones that they put in those conference rooms. We had to go out in the hallway and get on the payphone and call the guy and let him know we drafted him. And yeah, I had to go through an operator. I don't know if you guys remember those days.
Oh, yeah.
I certainly do. And that's where the draft started. And then, he kind of, as you said, everything, because it's like, oh, you can go and see these guys play. You can catalog the information. And really Gil was the instigator to all that. In the early days, that's why the Cowboys were good for so many years, because they were so ahead of the game in scouting. And then all of a sudden, after they started going to Super Bowls in the early 70s, the other teams were like, whoa, wait a minute. Maybe we need to do some of this stuff. So, yeah, he was at the forefront of what took place and probably where we've got to now in the NFL.
Not just that, really has created an entire industry when you think about scouting, whether professionally, or college or even like your casual fan on Twitter who, loves to watch film and break it down as well, Mickey. There's an entire section of sports in general where scouting has become a thing, and you can trace that back to Gil in so many ways.
Well, a cottage industry with all the draftniks out there that are making a living off of it, right? And so, and just, gosh, we could probably talk for a couple hours on some of the stories that he told and the things that, took place and the shenanigans that he probably pulled to get undrafted free agents by either hiding them out or sending his scouts to wherever that town was. So if they didn't get drafted, as soon as the draft was over, the Cowboy scout was there at the door knocking with a contract in hand and a roll of money in the hand to pay for the small signing bonuses guys were getting. We were talking with Everson Walls on our podcast today, and he signed his initial contract with Gil, and it's like, what was your signing bonus? $1,500. And he said, and I had to kind of plead for that, and that was 1981, right? Well, I told him that was 3 times the amount that Drew Pearson got, because Drew was in Tulsa and the Cowboys had a scout there waiting for him. And he ended up getting $500, right? That was his signing bonus as a rookie free agent, wide receiver. And he told the story. I said, well, what did you do with your $500? He goes, well, first of all, I had to go buy gas because I almost ran out of gas getting to the hotel where the scout was. And he said, and then I told all the guys, let's go to the dorm and, we'll buy some beer and have a good time. And I said, well, weren't you married at that time? And he goes, yeah, I was. And he goes, my wife asked me what kind of signing bonus did I get? And I told her $250. So he used the other $250 for a party.
Oh my! He's in the Hall of Fame for a reason. He invented an industry. It wasn't just the Street and Smiths and a bunch of rolls of quarters, as you mentioned, and how it now has become just almost a monstrous. It is a monstrous event, and where it is being around the country. Yeah, he found was Cornell Green. Was it Cornell Green that might have been his best so-called diamond in the rough?
Yeah, he had a lot, but he took a chance on a basketball player who had never played football in his life, but saw an athlete and said, okay, if this guy's such a good athlete, we should be able to do something with him, right? And here's how raw Cornell Green was. He gets to his first training camp. They're in pads, and he tells the story that, Cornell started off, he was running well. And one of the things he can do was running. He says, but about 3 or 4, maybe the first week in the training camp, he said all of a sudden Cornell's not running very well, and Cornell was complaining to Bob Lilly, and Bob Lilly looked at him and he goes, "Well, you got your hip pads on backwards." So he had the long part in the front, and it was chapping his legs, right, in his crotch. And it was like, oh, man, that's how green he was, right? But he saw an athlete, and that started a new trend. Hey, let's look for athletes, and maybe we can make them football players.
Mickey, I was sitting with him eating before a game one time, and it had been bothering me because, we do high school football games, college football games, all this. I'm at 3 games a weekend at the time, and there's so few good kickers and punters. And I thought, of all this time, how come this has not gotten maybe better and there's not more people that do this? And so I asked Gil, I said, Gil, why are there no good kickers and punters? Why they're the hardest things to find? And he said, look, there is tons of guys who, with no one around them and all that, can kick the ball. I've watched guys, do tryouts, and he's like this back in the 70s, kick a ball 70 yards, and it just goes through. And it's unbelievable. He said they drafted a punter one time out of a really small school, and of course he had every detail. I ate a sandwich at this deli right down the street, and it was good. He knew all that stuff.
And he probably told you the punter's mother's name, too.
Yeah, his mother drove us to the airport together because my rental car, all those kind of things. He had those details. And so they draft this punter, and they drafted him kind of higher for a punter because he's like, this guy's average is 50 yards in college. Nobody does that. He's unbelievable. I went to see him, and they get to the first game against Pittsburgh. First punt, shanks it 7 yards out of bounds. Second punt, blocked. Third punt, about 22 yards. And so after the game, after the exhibition game, he goes to the guy and he's like, hey, you can kick the ball 50 yards with no problem. And he said, Gil, I've never played in front of more than 500 people in my whole life. Like, there's 25,000 people here. Or 50,000. I'm too nervous. He said, that's why. And it's changed my whole outlook on why there's no good kickers.
Well, and look what's going on right now in the NFL with all these kickers changing spots at the last minute, right? The Cowboys have been patient with Brandon Aubrey, who's never kicked in an NFL game, right? Never kicked in a college game. He was a soccer player. Well, I've seen people giving up on draft picks, trying to look at what happened in Denver. They brought in Brett Maher, and then Will Lutz gets beat out by a raw rookie in New Orleans, and Lutz was Sean Payton's kicker in New Orleans all those years until he got hurt. And when he got hurt, Maher came in and saved the day the last 8 games of the season. Well, they didn't re-sign him because Lutz was coming back. Well, Lutz gets beat out by a rookie, and Maher's in Denver, and Payton goes, you know what? I'm just going to re-sign Lutz. So they re-signed him, and now Maher's out of a job. The Moody kid struggled, the third-round draft choice. Cade York gets released. And the Cowboys are somewhat fortunate so far, right? And I'm going to say so far because Brandon Aubrey's been pretty steady. But here's how raw he was, you guys. The first preseason game, after the first kickoff, he kicked off, and the guys on the sideline, the equipment guys told me the story. They said the guys are coming off the field, and Aubrey was going back up the field where he kicked off, and it was like, well, where are you going? He goes, I'm going to pick up my kicking tee. In the USFL, they had to get their own kicking tees. In the NFL, you have somebody running off the sideline grabbing the tee for you, right? But that's how inexperienced he was. But here we are, and they're going to go into the season with him.
Yeah, the way they had that organization, Murchison, he was hands off. He let them do all their things. Schramm was the money man, the PR guy. Grant was the personnel guy, although I understand that, Landry had a lot to do with that too. And Landry was the football coach. Isn't that the way it should be?
Yeah, it was pretty simple. They kind of simplified it that way, but again, that was back when owners, that was a toy for them, right? They just did it for their own entertainment to own it. They weren't worried about making money. They had already made all the money they can make. Think about this, David. When I got to Dallas and covering the Cowboys that first season, the ticket, every seat in the house was $25. $25. So, they weren't making money, but they were having fun because Clint Murchison, who was he wasn't a recluse, but he wasn't a big, party guy. He got to hang out with all these athletes and go to parties, and that's what he enjoyed most. But yeah, the game is, changed after all these years significantly. But yeah, it was simpler back then. I'll give you one more story. I don't know how much time you have, but when they signed Leroy Jordan, they drafted Leroy Jordan and gave him his signing bonus. Well, part of his signing bonus, he wanted this fancy, at time, Cadillac car, a sedan, what they used to call them back then. And so Gil says, okay, they weren't going to buy the car. They had a deal with dealerships, and Gil gets a deal, and he gets the car. Well, Leroy Jordan is in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, finishing off the college year. Back then, they actually finished the college year. And Gil, to save money, he's going to drive the car from Dallas to Tuscaloosa, okay? He gets somewhere in Mississippi, out in the country, close to Mississippi State, and it's at night, and he hits a cow. He hits a cow with the brand new car and basically totals it, right? And so Gil, knowing everybody he knows the head coach at Mississippi State at the time. And the guy comes and gets him, puts him up for the night. And the next morning, the sheriff knocks on the door and says, hey, the guy that owns that cow's coming after you. You killed his cow. He's going to sue you.
Oh, my goodness.
And And so the coach at Mississippi State kind of calmed the guy down and kind of smoothed things over. But now he's got to call Leroy Jordan and say, hey, you know that Cadillac I was bringing you? Yeah, you're going to have to wait a while because we got to get you another one.
Mickey,
Stuff like that happened, to Gil, right?
So glad he was alive when he was inducted into the Hall of Fame because I know what that meant to him. And he had a chance to enjoy it, embrace it, cherish it, along with family. And he was a fantastic. He's a friend. He really, really was.
Yeah.
And cannot imagine.
And David, good thing that he got into the Ring of Honor, too, because that meant a lot to him also.
Absolutely.
I'm going to tell you one more story, and I'll let you go. I'm working in Jackson, Mississippi, basically covering college football. And it must have been around 82, 83. It was getting close to the draft. And I had read about this Gil Brandt guy and how he was the draft guru. And I had a question about something, and I called, and I got his voicemail, right? And I left a message. Or maybe we didn't even have voicemail then. Probably some administrative assistant took a note and put it on his desk. And so I left a message, and I'm thinking, oh, well, that was a good shot in the dark, right? He calls me back. He doesn't know me from Adam, right? But he calls me back, and we're on the phone for a half hour. And then here I end up here and getting to know him not only as an associate, but a friend, too. Funny how life has its turns, right?
Yep, absolutely. A memory as sharp as a tack, knowledge of the ins and outs of the game that changed the game. The late Gil Brandt today is gone at the age of 91. Mickey, thank you for sharing a lot of what are hundreds of stories about Gil Brandt. We appreciate your time. We'll talk to you next Thursday.
Okay, thanks for allowing me that. It was fun for me.
Yeah, good. That's good for everybody. Gil Brandt, 91, passes away. When we come back, Paul Catalina's Top 5, and this is 365 Sports.
Unite Private Networks. Look, we are online because of them. I will get a chance because I haven't told the whole story in a last couple of ads we've done for them. But we were, as if you've watched the show for a long time, in the desert when it came to our internet service. We would go off the air, and that's lost revenue for us. We go off the air, that's lost revenue. That's ads we can't run. That's views we can't get. That's people that may never watch again because they think we're some kind of rinky-dink operation. And we were trying to find somebody that helped, and people were sending us things, and it just didn't seem good. And then an angel named Ace Wigley walked in the door, and Ace came to me, and he was like, hey, look, we can make you a deal here. This is what we got. And we're on our own essential fiber network here that we're not sharing with anybody in the building, in the neighborhood. That's what the problem is. So if your business needs fiber and high-speed fiber, excellent fiber, and white glove customer service, because that's what they have. We had a little bit of an issue the other day. It was solved. We didn't drop off the air. We just slowed down for a little bit, which is also fantastic. But I called them within 2 rings, answered the phone, like, hey, how you doing? Here, try this. Boom, done, fixed. It was unbelievable. So if you're interested for your business, and they're in markets all over the country, go to UnitePrivateNetworks.com, UnitePrivateNetworks.com, and see if your business is right for Unite Private Networks. I promise you, if they're in your town and they can get to you, it is, because it has been a lifesaver for us. That's UnitePrivateNetworks.com.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected. Get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
It's another time to speak with Samantha Duvall from TexasBeefHouse.com, handles the marketing, and someone that you will talk to a lot when you do call for the great product of the Texas-raised Wagyu beef. It's college football season, tailgating, it's a big deal. People love to put beef and pork and chicken, etc., on the grill. Let me know what you have.
We've got everything. If you've got a morning game, you can get our breakfast sausage or our bacon. You can tailgate with some breakfast tacos. If you've got an afternoon or evening game, we of course got our hamburger patties. They're half-pound patties, 4 patties to a package, and we even have jalapeno and cheese patties. They're amazing. They'll blow your mind. Just that extra flavor, not too spicy. They have a high-heat cheese so they don't melt on the grill, and our patties don't shrink up on the grill either. Anytime you order, use our code SICK'EM10 to get 10% off your order of $100 or more.
Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu from our pasture to your plate. That's Samantha Duvall, TexasBeefHouse.com.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Top 5 random thoughts. Just had these today. Thought I would put them forward of just kind of big stories maybe around college football. And we can have a short little discussion about them here for the top 5. Number 5. Can Penn State really win the Big Ten? Are they that good yet? New quarterback. He was there last year in Drew Aller. Noah Singleton, the running back, is well thought of. They've got some transfers in that should make them a lot better on offense and a more even, but this is a schedule that is at Ohio State, Michigan at home. Those 2 things would, if they lost those 2 games, it keeps them from winning the Big Ten. I'm not sure, if the roster is there yet, and I guess we'll see, but they're getting a lot of hype that this might be the team that James Franklin kind of gets out of the last couple years of just not getting where he wants them to be, and that might be 3rd place in the Big Ten this year because of the 2 teams ahead of them. But they've got an interesting schedule. I'm just not sure if this is the year for the hype train on Penn State yet.
It seems like it that this is, if there's a year. That doesn't mean it can't be next year. It's kind of like Michigan trying to knock the door down, and finally they did. But about the time Penn State's ready to, they don't have to just deal with Ohio State. They have to deal with Michigan and Ohio State.
Yeah. So
yeah, I think there's a lot of reason for optimism. Drew Aller, I understand why people were super stoked about him. Last year there was a lot of calls for him at times. Just wanting to see something a little bit different, and there's certainly a lot of hype for him and for this team. But yeah, I'm not ready to put them above of Michigan or Ohio State yet at this point. That's just their division. That's not the Big Ten. That's their division. So. Yeah, I think it's entirely possible. Don't get me wrong. But am I banking on it? No. But, yeah, that's going to be an interesting story to watch.
I think, and again, the Big Ten has to figure it out because there's 2 more teams since they made the schedule. But in the, whatever the Super Rivalry +1 schedule, whatever name of it is now, Penn State will be better off in that there will be years where they'll be able to weave through and not have to play both Ohio State and Michigan at the same time.
Right.
And, now, granted, now with the league being so big, you might trade off like, oh, we don't have to play Ohio State and Michigan this year. Okay, here's USC and Oregon. So maybe it's not, I mean, you're not really going to be able to avoid all that, but if your matchups are better and you can get the 800-pound gorilla out of the room for a year, maybe that sets you up in a shot to where you can be in that position to win the Big Ten.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't know that everybody really thought out all that much before all of the moves were made of the scheduling issues that come with this. Because, yeah, now you were guaranteed to get Michigan and Ohio State every year, and now you're not. And is there years where you don't get them either? One, because there's just so many teams that you have to – they got to play USC at some point. They got to play Oregon at some point. I mean, how's all that going to work? Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. But, yeah, they're going to be really good. I mean, they're going to win a bunch of games. I think your baseline is like 9 wins probably for this team. But I'm not surprised if a lot of people are shooting higher than that. But, yeah, there's just a couple of big juggernauts in front of them that I'm not ready to just leap over just yet.
Number 4. Is Texas good enough to make the college football playoff? I think the answer is they're good enough to win the Big 12, but is the Big 12 a league that is going to not beat each other up enough to where the winner doesn't have 2 losses? That is, and the thing is for Texas is if they lose to Alabama and then they lose just 1 game in the Big 12, they're probably on the outside looking in. I mean, they have a better case than most people because they're Texas. But bottom line is, if you've got 2 losses, you're probably staring at 4th at best, and there might be a couple teams with 1 loss in there that will be above you.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with 2 losses, like you said, you leave it up to what is everybody else also doing? Mm-hmm. Is there an undefeated Pac-12 champ or is there a 1-loss Pac-12 champ? Who did Texas lose to in that second game? Was it Iowa State in a clunker or was it TCU in triple overtime? I think that those will factor in as for the question. Yeah, I think they're good enough to make the college football playoff. I do. I think that they're rightfully the favorite in the Big 12 this year. I don't know that I'm, all in on like, yes, they are going to make the playoff because so many things are in their control, but also out of their control. But I do think they're good enough, yes.
Yeah, I do think that the Big 12 is just a tight enough league to where they can have a season where they look, even in say they beat Alabama, and then the hype train's really going to go there, but say they lose to Kansas State and TCU in really close games, they could look fantastic and be 10-2 and out on the outside looking in.
Yeah.
Just how the league is. I think that they're a better team than most in the Big 12, but I don't think everybody else is so far behind them that it wouldn't surprise me if they did lose 2 games just because it's a good league.
Yeah, no, I'm got them, I think, just on paper at 10-2,
Mm-hmm.
losing to Alabama and then losing, an unspecified game, TCU probably or something along those lines. But yeah, I'm not banking on them going undefeated. But I am riding the hype train as far as them being, one of the better teams in the country and certainly out of the Big 12.
Yep. Number 3, can a Pac-12 team make the college football playoff this year? And the Pac-12 has maybe even a tougher problem than the Big 12 in that those teams might be tighter and better than the Big 12 when you're talking about Oregon, Washington, USC, Utah, all right there at the top of that league that might trade some losses, not to mention UCLA or Oregon State or Wazoo jumping in and upsetting some teams and putting them behind the 8 ball.
Yeah, going back to Penn State, too, that's going to be really interesting to see them against West Virginia, mostly because West Virginia is such a question mark about, what they're going to look like, who their starting quarterback is, and man, they start off in Happy Valley, and that first month of the season for them is just absolutely brutal. But, as far as the Pac, sure. I just don't know that it's going to be USC. I don't know that's where I go first. I think I do go more towards an Oregon, for example, of potentially winning it. But, yeah, they've got a lot of great contenders. I think it's much more of a cluster of a race at the top than a lot of other conferences where you can kind of boil it down to probably 2 or 3 teams. I think there's like a handful of teams that all could, if things swing the right way, win the conference, not make the playoff. But I do think that, there's certainly a contender that could emerge from the Pac-12 and make the playoff.
Number 2, could Tennessee be good enough to win the SEC East? Now, this means upsetting Georgia and not really probably losing again. Georgia's probably going to lose a game this year because that's just mathematics, and it's hard to do what they're trying to do. But to win the SEC East, the Vols are going to have to run through and beat Georgia and not lose more than one other game and then win that head-to-head against Georgia. So it's going to be tough. I think they're going to be probably really good again. I'm really high on Joe Milton and what he can bring in that Josh Heupel offense. But Georgia and the Bulldogs are sitting right there. But depending on what Josh Heupel's done in this offseason to kind of rebuild the roster after Hendon Hooker, it's going to be Joe Milton, but losing Cedric Tillman and Jalen Hyatt are both big-time wide receivers that have big roles already in their rookie season for their respective NFL teams. How do you rebuild that in a year? And could they be good enough to knock off Georgia in the SEC East? I wonder about this.
Yeah, I think the lag time for teams replacing a lot of talent is far lesser than it's ever been before, because of the transfer portal. With the talent they lost, or there's somebody else I was looking at last night, or it was like a TCU. If that had been in like 2015, there's no chance in hell I'm picking them to make anything. But now, let's get JoJo Earl. Let's get Brockermeyer. Let's get, and just load back on up. So, yeah, I think Tennessee is going to be in the mix. I just can't put them above Georgia in any way, shape, or form right now. But I do think they're going to be right there nipping at their heels and hoping for a stumble and hoping for an upset when those two meet. But you get Alabama and Georgia. And then, some other potentially interesting games, like how good is A&M? How good are they? But if I had to pick one upset in college football this year, this is totally out of the blue, but just thinking about it, just the reaction that there would be if UTSA rolled into Knoxville and upset the Vols, wouldn't that be something else, man? Can you imagine the reaction if that were to take place? So that's going to be an interesting game to see the Roadrunners travel up there, and I'm not banking on that, but if I could see, what if, that'd be really high at the top of the list.
They get them between Florida and South Carolina. South Carolina, a team that beat the brakes off of Tennessee last year, and Florida, who is arguably their biggest. I don't know who Tennessee's biggest rival is if you're a Tennessee fan. Florida's up there.
Florida's
right up there for Tennessee. Probably not their biggest, but one of their biggest in the game they super, super care about. So they sandwich right in there between a revenge game and a rivalry game. So if you're looking to sneak in when they may forget about you, that might.
The chaos lover in me would just love to see that, because that would be some chaos. I'd say Alabama's a bigger rival for Tennessee.
Yeah.
But I would think that Florida's pretty high up there too. Yeah. They're going to be good. I think Heupel's the real deal, man. I think the system that he runs is one that's going to last for a good long while for them in this current landscape. And yeah, they're going to be good, but I don't know about last year good. And the Hendon Hooker, not Hendon Hooker, but the Joe Milton, the hype over just his arm strength has made the hype in general, I think, go kind of crazy. So I'm interested to see him play a game and throw really far, but also do a lot of the other things as well. So that's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah. All right, number one. Is this a traditional or transitional year for Alabama? I forgot to leave that part off, but is this a traditional Alabama team that just reloads and, they had their little dip for a minute last year where they lost a couple games, but they still looked really good? Or given all that they've had to replace and the youth, not that they won't be good, but will this be one of those Alabama teams that the fans don't really, when they're listing all the good ones, they're we'll skip 2023 and we'll move on, because Alabama in 2024 is probably going to be Alabama again, but they, for the first time in a long time, they don't know who the quarterback's going to be, and they're taking it right down to the wire, which has been kind of their thing for a long time, where it's this guy and 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 this guy. Now they've got a three-way battle for the starting quarterback there. They were not great at the skill positions last year, by their standards. I mean, most people would have killed for who they had, but they're a little down on playmakers. The lines are still pretty raw. So there's, even Nick Saban has to hit the reset button every now and again. Now, his computer doesn't take as long to restart as ours do, but still, everybody has to hit Control Alt Delete sometimes. And this might be the year that they're doing it. But again, it wouldn't surprise me either way if Alabama's a little bit not Alabama this year, but still really good. Or if Nick Saban just oh, really?
Yep.
Yeah. No, I hit reboot a long time ago. You guys just didn't notice.
They've won 10 or more games every year since 2007. And in that time period, they've only won 10 games or not more than that one time in that entire time period. So I know we're all waiting on the demise. is Saban on the hot seat? But I do agree with you. I don't know that they're the juggernaut now. I think they've been supplanted by Georgia in that regard. I think they've got a lot of heat surrounding them within their own division, and the whole don't have a quarterback out of a 3-man group, and they're still just kind of wishy-washy on all that. That does make me raise my eyebrows a little bit. So, yeah, they just don't seem to be the almost unstoppable force that they've kind of been in years past.
Yeah, and look,
I think more people are hoping.
Yes, very much that.
I think
more than anything.
I've seen that from a lot of different fan bases in the SEC or the incoming schools from the Big 12. I think that there looks like there might be a slight crack only because of Georgia, who they lost to and how they lost last year. But I think there's more hope that he's sliding rather than evidence, unless we see something early on this year.
And I don't think it's
like week 2 against Texas.
Yes,
I don't think it's sliding necessarily. It's just, eventually you get caught up in everybody gets caught up in a numbers game where you've had enough people going in and out the door that you're just kind of in a group where not everybody's ready at the same time, and it takes time to build that. And so if they were if they were 10-3 this year and, lost to all the best teams that they play, that would not completely shock me. And then if they were 13-0 next year, winning the SEC and rolling back into national championship because they went through this awful 10-3 that Nick Saban would go to, that just everybody gets a reset. It just, some people's are harder than others.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to have their issue of, if you lose more than one game, it's an absolute disaster. I want to say this about Texas, though, because this was something we were talking about. Are they college football playoff good? And hear me out here, because this is something I put in my power, or not my power, I call them the mojo rankings, because I do it a little bit differently.
Like Odessa Permian mojo?
Mojo as in swagger and kind of magic and just that special kind of mojo. So, kind of like Odessa Permian. But if you were to give Dave Aranda or Lance Leipold or Mike Gundy or Chris Kleiman or Sonny Dykes, and I don't know how many other guys you want to name, if you were to give them what Steve Sarkisian has, are you thinking anything short of a massive season? Like if those guys had those weapons?
Yes, but there is the factor of the intense amount of pressure. And you have to be a certain amount of personality because that can eat you alive if you don't handle it.
You're right. Like Dave Aranda would not be a fit for Texas. But I'm saying from a football perspective, we're still kind of wondering about Sark feeling his way out, but there's a lot of positivity. When people go they're overrated, everybody's blowing smoke and all this again, it's give that team to half the league's coach, Gus Malzahn. You think he could take Texas' roster and go ball out of control? And yes, there is the pressure aspect. That's fair to mention that. But that's what Sark signed up for. And so that just to me kind of solidifies where I am with Texas, of just the belief in their talent, that if he can just coach them right and deal with the pressures, then that's why I'm optimistic about them as opposed to years past where, they're typically more talented, but not in the way that it just seems to be this year.
Yeah, absolutely. You put Dave Aranda in Austin, and they'll be like, why isn't he mad about that?
No, that'd be weird.
He's already thinking about 7 different ways he can solve the problem. So, why isn't he yelling? He doesn't yell.
Yeah.
Only if, he's trying to get somebody's attention. Hey, Blake, that's his yelling.
Teams are kicking off here on this Thursday night. Will be interesting to watch what happens with Utah, Florida, see what Matt Rule does in Minnesota. UCF opens it up for the Big 12 tonight, and that will be fun to watch and see what they do in the opening game at home against Kent State at the Bounce House. Garrett Ross, thank you. Levi Caraway, Emery Winter, Jack McKenzie, Owen, also a part of it today. For Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak, hey, tonight, 10:30 every weeknight, CW channel, 365 Sports tonight. Enjoy the games. We'll discuss them tomorrow. And, of course, then we have the full weekend. This is 365 Sports. Good night.